Welcome to our June monthly Q&A. In this meeting, we test drive evolutionary astrology, basically through my offering some rapid fire mini chart readings. And we take a look at these charts as a group so we can really see and understand the methods in EA and what we're learning in the Astro School. And this group also does function as a support group. Oftentimes there are vulnerable shares. There may be more challenging experiences that people are going through. So I ask that we be mindful and that we create a container that's really honoring the human experience. That's what astrology can really get us to. And astrology can certainly be a vehicle for our own spiritual evolution through compassion, by understanding the full spectrum experience of life. So this is a support group. It also is an opportunity to test drive and get educated on evolutionary astrology. Okay. Now, for those who'd like to, make comments or chat throughout this Q&A, you can hit the chat button at the bottom of the window and send, chat with one another. I'm going to be mostly speaking one-on-one, and I'll ask for those who need to be spoken to first. You can raise your hand by clicking the reactions button at the bottom of the window. And other than that, we'll go with the flow. All right. Thanks so much. Again, it's great to see y'all. Thanks for joining us in this meeting. So Susanna, I'll ask you to unmute your microphone. And how are you doing, Susanna? How can I help you?
Hi, Timothy. Thanks so much. Well, first of all, I saw Annie raise her hand like this initially when you first said something. I don't think so Annie, if you want to go first and then maybe me second, is that okay? Okay. Well, I'll go first then. Wow, I don't know. Okay, I sent my chart to you, but I think you might already have it. I am really extremely upset about the SCOTUS decision, and it comes at a time when I feel really, really stuck in my life. I have been so isolated throughout the pandemic, and I'm in a new area, moved here during the pandemic, and so in the Triangle of North Carolina, and I have no community here. I have one friend who lives 45 miles away, and she's another priestess. We're both priestesses, and through a teacher that we had in Asheville, initiation, we went through there. So then there's a lot that I could do. There's a lot I could offer. I'm a therapist, so I do one-on-one Zoom telehealth sessions with people. And but I'm just really kind of stuck as to how to. It's almost like I've lost my way of reaching out to others, and I've or how to make connections. Or I find myself thinking, well, maybe this group of people, and then like the Unitarians or something, and then I just go, no, no. I love this community, but again, everything is sort of online. So anyway, I just wanted to see what you could say about that. I also saw that your Zoom or your video YouTube on Black Moon Lilith and the Lilith asteroid and this new moon in Cancer and all of that. And I really feel like it's brought up so much for me, so much grief. And it's ancient. It's like very old. I think it has a lot to do with patriarchy. I look back over my life, and it's just like my whole life I have felt so oppressed and so different, and like everything, being a woman has been so very difficult. Although modern day, I should say, there's a blessing. We've had a lot of rights, but still, and then to have them start to be taken away and be treated second-class citizen, and it's just very disturbing. So I just wanted to see if you could help me out with, or take a look at what maybe is causing this stuckness and this inability to find my people, and offer my gifts and my things that I can do for others.
Okay, I greatly appreciate this, Susanna. And so I think what I'm going to do to answer this question is we'll do this in two parts. First, I'll kick off this meeting by speaking a bit about this new moon and exactly what Susanna is speaking to in terms of the emotions that can be coming up, that can be going very deep. And this is something that I mentioned in the new moon video that I put out several days ago. But that video came out before this Supreme Court decision. And it's something that I just like to kind of highlight the specific signature that Susanna mentioned and how it shows up in this chart. Okay, so here's the Cancer new moon. I'm just going to turn off houses. Okay, so we see signs correlated with houses here. And what I specifically saw that is this indication is that the day of the new moon in Cancer, and of course, the Cancer new moon for everybody brings up deep emotions every single year. This is the time when we're our most sensitive, subjective. Cancer is the past, childhood, home, relationship to mother. And this is happening, small scale and large scale, because like Susanna mentioned, there can be very deep emotions that are actually going into past lives with this particular new moon. And that is because we also see Neptune stations retrograde at this time, trine the south node of the moon in Scorpio. Now, the south node of the moon in Scorpio is where we're having this collective tragedy. Y'all may have noticed that shootings are at an all-time high. Well, this is a South Node Scorpio experience. This was a pretty easily predictable collective experience going into this South Node transiting Scorpio time. This is where the dramas, the violence, the suppression and congestion and darkness in the cities reaches a boiling point, and it's boiling over. Neptune stationing retrograde trine the South Node on the day of this new moon is like a collective bleed through. That's what Neptune is. It's when there's this boundarylessness. Now, Neptune retrograde is when things get revealed. It's like the fog machine of the collective consciousness turns off, and we're suddenly seeing what's actually beneath it. So it's like the American dream is not really so bright and shiny right now, as we're seeing all these shootings, as we're seeing the resurgence of these medieval rules. So it is extremely depressing to feel this Cancer collectively, Neptune in Pisces, where we're digesting this congestion and this darkness. Now, as I mentioned in the video, the feeling of this is what's actually healing and necessary, but it's not comfortable. This congestion is what it is. It's like, if we were to see a snake that had just eaten something that seems way too big, and it looks uncomfortable to even see the snake so congested and full of all this stuff. That's like our collective consciousness at this time. We are this snake, and we're feeling this in individual ways, but it can be mysterious, it can be uncomfortable, it can be unknown. And that is why I spoke so much too about Lilith being so involved in this new moon. So I'm actually going to just get prepared for this Q&A and turn on both the Black Moon Lilith and asteroid Lilith, just because I'm sure that will be relevant for what's going on. But we can see that they're both within several degrees of this new moon, further bringing up this repressed, feminine, deeply felt emotion. That's Lilith in Cancer. Lilith in Cancer is like so much emotional congestion. There is a need to simply do the ritual, the grieving, the mourning that's going to be just like uncorking this raw emotion that can just be unleashed. And it's difficult to comprehend. It's so deep, so powerful, and so intense. That is the signature of this new moon. So thanks again, Susanna. I appreciate you kicking off this meeting by calling attention to where we are in time. I'm sure it will be relevant to others as we go through this Q&A. Now, to come back to your personal experience, there were a couple transits, that I immediately highlighted. And so I want to go back and highlight that once again. Okay. Is this is the right chart we're looking at?
Let's see now. That doesn't look like my chart, my natal chart.
Yeah, something must have happened.
Right. Yeah, I should have Pluto in the first house.
Oh, okay, that's what I did. I turned off. I turned off our porphyry houses, and that.
There it is. That's it. Wait, there it is. That looks familiar now.
This is what we need indeed, because we can now see, now that we have houses placed, the significance of Saturn, which just stationed retrograde on your descendant. This is the 7th house cusp of relationship. Now, this transit is just beginning. Saturn's going to go over that descendant again several months from now. And what that means is that this transit just beginning, it's going to be a project ongoing through the rest of this year into 2023. And in a Saturnarian way, we have the work that needs to be done, oftentimes given to us through the experience of lack or limitation. Saturn places before us the obstacles that we overcome, and then in overcoming those obstacles, we develop strength and capability. So Saturn's not easy, but Saturn is also something that ultimately works for us. We see the development of Saturn, and that's going to be happening in the realm of relationships through an experience of lack or limitation. Like, hey, where are my friends? Where is this support? Where can I share my ideas? See how Mercury is right on her descendant. So Saturn just stationed on her Mercury as well, which is going to bring up friendships, siblings, connections, and the exchange of information. And is this supportive? Is this fair? Is this mutual? With Saturn on the descendant, the 7th house cusp as well. Now, Saturn stationing on Mercury is also going to bring a scrutinization of mind. It's a very critically thinking period. And that's going to present challenges and opportunities. At this time, it's important that you're taking seriously your ideas and how you want to share them, because that's, again, where this work is taking place. But it can also be very scrutinizing. It can also be the task of managing, this realm of seriousness. And I suggest that you use that, but also don't let it, drag you all the way down under, if that makes sense, because Saturn's a heavy gravity. So it's just about understanding and using that gravity. There's something to say. This is about building a structure for your sharing and your teaching and your connecting with others. Now, for all of us at this time, we can see Saturn is collectively square. Oops, we see my annotations there still. Saturn is square the moon's nodes. It's going to take me a little bit to get the drawing down. Okay, now what this means is wherever Saturn is in our chart, later degrees of Aquarius, that's where there is this necessary work in focus. Like, we have to build something. We have to step up and do something. And this, again, can even come through the experience of lack, which I'm observing collectively is the lack of community and connection and support. That's a collective experience right now. And we who are feeling that are actually being called to build or create that in some way. And again, for Susanna, it's on her Mercury, it's on her descendant. She's got something to teach, say, and share. And the other major thing I want to point out in your transits is that we see the transiting Moon's nodes are exactly aligned with Susanna's midheaven and her IC. And this is further saying, okay, it's the time for Susanna to put something out there. It is the time to step up. It's the time to construct. It's the time to be the authority, flex your muscles, be in charge, call the shots, be the CEO. But again, it's an ongoing experiment. Uranus is going to transit this midheaven through this next year. And that's really an opportunity to reinvent your role in the world or society. This could also be a calling where the current shifting of economy, agriculture, that's this Uranus North Node, again, affecting all of us in certain ways. It's saying, hey, this might be a calling towards a particular humanitarian role or calling, or being involved again in community, Uranus, in a way that might be different than how you've done it before, or the career or roles you've been involved in before. It's going through this big experiment. And again, Saturn's just going to give you this push through this lack or this winter time to ultimately find and construct these meaningful connections. So it looks like you're being called to share something, to talk about something. And this may be giving you a push a bit more out there in the world to step up and build what is missing that may be needed through that recognition of what's missing. So let me check in with you. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Or bring up
It does. It does. And it explains this really intense pressure that I feel to be out in the world and to be doing something. So the North, I'm glad you talked about the North Node in Taurus and Uranus, because and right on my midheaven, and because that I've been feeling that. So there's just been this struggle of got to make this happen, but how do I do it? And now I understand better with the Saturn limitations. They're actually calling me to build the structure for it. That brings me some relief, Timothy. Thank you, because that on top of all this other going on, and I feel like actually this activism, this calling actually to do something about what's happening with our losing our rights, and I just found myself this morning just thinking there's got to be a way. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but there has to be some legal way. Like if you're in a state where it's banned, that you can, bring this to the courts there and sue them for, like, okay, well, if you're forcing me to take this to term, then you're going to have to pay for everything or something. I don't know. I feel about it. And justice is so important to me. Absolutely. It's a big deal in my Gene Keys chart. I have it, if you know much about that, but I have that's a big thing for me. So one more thing though, I also, if you don't mind me just speaking about, I know Saturn is going to go right over my Chiron again. Is that correct? And how does that affect when Saturn transits one's Chiron?
I think it's part of the same signature where this is calling you to form the network or the community or the humanitarian endeavor, all being the archetype of Aquarius, where there may also be the nagging sense of alienation, isolation, or not being seen for what you're doing. And that's where there is a changing of how you're doing relationships. This is part of the ongoing work of Saturn. Saturn's in the seventh house says relationships need work, especially because this transit's, just beginning. It's going to take you through 2023 and 2024. And that's when you're building these relationships that can be very long lasting, that can be very mutually supportive. So that's what's coming up for you. So absolutely. Again, just to reaffirm what you're saying, I highly suggest that you do what you feel called to do, where you're getting pushed out there in the world, because this can also be a time where emotions are very heightened. And that is not something that you need to go so far into to get swept off your feet. So the actual stepping up and acting is to also keep yourself out of the quagmire of the collective cesspool that can be quite chaotic and overwhelming right now. Uh, it's like riding a bicycle. Just keep yourself moving, and that'll take you clear through to the other end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for kicking off this Q&A, Susanna. Deeply
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move on to Megan next. And again, for those of you who have something to get to, click the reactions button at the bottom of the window and then raise your hand. I'll speak to you next. And things will get moving more fluidly as we get into things as well. All right, Megan, how are you doing? Good to hear from you.
Hey, Timothy. Thanks for having this space. It's good to see you. Yeah, I love the video on Lilith that you put up. That was just phenomenal. It really felt that. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And to talk about my personal experience right now, there's two things that are kind of going on, and well, definitely not kind of going on, they're definitely going on, which is I'm having a really difficult time focusing on like small to-do list kind of tasks, but I have like a very expanded like vision of the future, and like very excited to like just unroll these and get started on these massive projects, but like small things are just hard.
Sweet. Before you continue, if you'd like to look at your chart, do you mind if I get your info real quick?
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought.
Actually, I have your chart saved, so we are good to go.
Yeah, okay.
Keep flowing with it. I just want to make
Okay.
sure I can highlight some things.
Thank you. So there's that, just like there's an empowering, like there's visions of things that I really want to do in the future that are going to be like a big fucking deal. And I can feel them coming. And I'm changing just by leaps and bounds. I don't even recognize myself from 6 months ago. But I'm having difficulty focusing right on like small tasks and like to-do lists and like deadlines. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is the shit show that was like 2 weeks ago. Well, the Mars Chiron on my son like was one of the most difficult experiences. It was one of the most difficult weeks that I've had in a long time. And I've had Saturn on my son, and Pluto's getting there. I mean, I'm Pluto square, all these things, but like this was tough. And I felt it physically. I had a rash that just spontaneously appeared, that wouldn't go away, that my skin just felt like it was on fire. And I just feel like I'm still recovering from that. And so I've kind of like goes in with like, how can I give myself time to rest from an experience like that, but still have like these things that I need to get done for work and for other things. I'm just having such struggle focusing. Thank you.
For sure. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I totally hear you with this Mars Chiron. This is a very challenging transit. And I saw so many reflections of this Mars Chiron, whether it be health stuff, gender stuff, sex stuff, very challenging. My Mars is right where your sun is, squares 5 planets, quincunx Pluto. And yeah, it was a very painful experience for myself as well. Like I said, I kicked off this meeting by mentioning a giant splinter in my foot. So yeah, Mars is the body, physical energy. Chiron going through Aries can be bringing up what might be physical, health, sexual, gender crisis being experienced in a diversity of different ways by many people. So what to be said, I mean, this is, it can bring up these health crises. And, 10th house is our job. It's our career. This is where Chiron transiting the 10th can bring up that experience of inadequacy or not doing enough, needing to perform more. So I hear you, that's challenging. And it's also about recognizing your worth, what you are doing, and making sure that you're not beating yourself up or feeling guilty about what's natural. That's part of Chiron's healing in the 10th house. Recognition of what you are doing, even if it may not be totally finished or perfect. Now, that in and of itself, what is totally finished or perfect, this is 6th, 12th house, Virgo, Pisces themes. This is a Neptune conjunct the South Node type of theme and experience. And we also see this year ongoing, Neptune is going to be doing your square to your natal Neptune this next several years. Neptune's also square your moon's nodes. Okay, so that's going to really bring up all of these Neptune themes around perfection, completion, what you're doing. Is it enough? Control, loss of control. What do you have control over? What don't you have control over? And it can be this experience of what's kind of dissolving in between your fingers here. So what I can suggest about this is largely going to be reflected in your own natal chart. These evolutionary themes with Neptune on the South Node. There's going to be so much exploration of boundaries, what you're open to, what you're closed to. Neptune on the South Node typically has boundarylessness, usually very service-oriented, compassionate, giving, even to the point of self-sacrificial or diving in or becoming overly idealistic. And this is where Neptune South Node themes is simply an exploration of Neptune, because there's also going to be a wisdom of compassion, a wisdom of charity, spirituality, connection to nature and all that is. And so there's all these themes around discernment, North Nodes in Gemini, the left brain, what's mine versus what's theirs, my ideas versus, their beliefs, so on and so forth. So much really deep existential exploration. And again, this is going to really come down to boundaries. Like if you feel like you're exhausted, or if you're, losing a sense of direction, that could simply be, a reflection that there's a need to go in your own direction, or have some time for yourself, to be on a journey of self-exploration, because you can really be speaking your own truth and doing your own thing in the world. And this is a time where the collective is really boiling over and chaotic. So that can also be even affecting body, health, nervous system, with this Neptune being in the 6th house. So let me tune back with you, if that makes sense, or if that brings up any follow-up questions.
Yeah, I think definitely the compassion aspect and the boundaries and just not pushing myself. I mean, I come from a very aspirational background, and I like to aspire, but I don't know that I always do it in a healthy way. I don't have that much healthy modeling of like how to aspire without then beating myself up if I can't achieve all of the massive things that I want to achieve. So yeah, and I do feel so connected to the Sagittarian within myself. And so as you point that out, it really speaks to me. And after this Mars Chiron, after the conjunction, like I have felt more, I've definitely felt more relaxed. I've had a lot of anxiety issues in my life, and I'm withdrawing off of a medication now for anxiety, because I think it has some effects that I don't want. And it's just like I've been taking it for a lot longer than I needed to, or than it should be taken. So I'm just like trying to, heal this space. And I actually am outside of the US. I'm outside of Mexico right now. I'm in Europe. I've been here for a while working, and I actually am enjoying having the space from those two cultures that I've lived in for so long that are very hectic right now. I feel like I have a space to heal my nervous system. Like I've been able to really release a lot of the meds that I was on because of that. But that's just the follow-up. But thank you so much.
For sure. And just to pass off a few final reflections, I think you can really benefit from less is more. Like this, achievement and perfection and mission complex and very, very big can be so burdensome. So there's really this discerning on what excites you. What do you want to do? I'm going to encourage you to be very, very selfish, because you get to do what you want to do in the world. And that does bring a focus to yourself, your individual voice, your individual interests, where your curiosity is leading you, what excites you. And that's going to kind of give you this simultaneous focus. So you have these boundaries that allows you to preserve what's yours and not get swept off by the culture or what's going on out there, or these philosophical explorations getting swept very, very vast. And it's also going to allow, through those barriers and boundaries, then it's like this flow just kind of moves through you easily and effortlessly. So what you're doing doesn't have to be a burden. It doesn't have to be too much. It's going to be easy, and less is more can be such a powerful wisdom for you, as well as allowing yourself to really be selfish. That's going to bring you more energy, resources, direction, confidence, and clarity.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Great to hear from you, and thanks for sharing, Megan. All right, I'm continuing to move down the line. For those who need to get spoken to next, hit the reactions button, raise your hand. You can also go to the top left and you can change the view, from a grid, so you can see everyone's faces or see people one-on-one, depending what you'd like. All right, Dana, I'm going to unmute your mic. And how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Timothy, and hey, everybody. I have raised my hand. We are without electricity right now, and my husband fixed a camping solar thing that I can join with you all. So I don't know if it holds the line. So my question, first I will thank you all for the last video, Timothy, that on Lilith. Brilliant. And my question, what is my task? The importance with a new moon of the next week, exactly on my 1000 node, which is my resolution node from the skipped step. And
Can I get your birth info really quick?
Yes, I think you have my birth information.
I didn't get it for some reason, so if you don't mind sharing just the date, time, and place.
Yes, it's 31st of July, 1973 in Germany, Herford.
And the time?
The time is 12:12.
12:12 p.m. And
in the mid of the day.
okay. And can you spell the city in Germany?
Herfurd.
Herfurd?
Ah?
Is it Herfa?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to pull this chart up. Yeah. I was curious why I didn't get more birth info. Maybe there was a technical issue. Okay, and again, you wanted to know about the new moon, which is going to be...
I see it's the city isn't that. I will write for you in the camera. Can you see this?
Herford. Okay, I'll make that adjustment. Okay, so you're asking about the new moon square moon's nodes. Okay, it's the same chart. And also, you mentioned a skipped step. This is that 12th house Pluto you're mentioning here. Okay.
Also the importance, my task on the new moon, exactly on the south node, which is a resolution node, in a square to Pluto and the asteroid Lilith as well on the other side.
Got it. Okay, so Pluto being the skipped step here means that there's going to be a very deep nature, a very deep, we could say, soul power that's been cultivated over many lifetimes. Square the moon's nodes means it is likely not recognized early in this life. Now, Pluto has so much to do with power, recognition of the unconscious. So it's like you're exploring your unconscious, what's going on deeply beneath the surface. Pluto is also, symbolism, the biological magnetism of the unconscious. So you're exploring the deep end of your soul. And then she mentioned that the south node in Cancer is the resolution node. So there's a necessary reflection on the past. South node in Cancer. Childhood, relationship to mother, early life experiences that would have a Pluto 12th house theme, psychic sensitivity, being a natural channel, having creative gifts. But all Pluto 12th house souls must know that they are like sponges to their early childhood environment. So that's where there's this necessary reflection on the past, and then integrating this 12th house Pluto, there's going to be creative gifts, psychic sensitivities, the capability to channel and flow that becomes embodied through this necessary self-reflection. Okay, now this new moon is exactly on the south node. So guess what this means? It's the time to do this necessary self-reflection. It's going to bring up emotions from the past. It's going to bring up themes from childhood, family, mother, etc. Okay, so it's really an opportunity to tune in through feeling, then being the mother to your own inner child, listening to that story, feeling those emotions, allowing that story to be heard, so to recognize yourself, what's truly going on beneath the surface. Now, this asteroid, Lilith, that you mentioned, it's a little, I give a bit tighter orbs for asteroids square the nodes. So it's slightly square the nodes. We see Neptune is transiting that Lilith in Pisces. This would again highlight that Pisces sensitivity, the capability to be a channel, to be creative, to be tuned in, to have a direct connection to nature is also Pluto in the 12th house. The essence of everything, to have a connection to that essence in some way. That's what that Lilith in Pisces would also say, is that sensitivity is there. It's a gift. It's something that's going to be very open and highlighted with Neptune transiting that Lilith at this time. Does that make sense? Any other questions about that?
That makes sense. It feels like that I've done it already since the last 10 years, the theme of the new moon on the south node. But I guess it's only to follow up, or when it may ready. Or do you understand what I mean?
I don't, not sure. I think what you may be saying is this is still an ongoing process, which would be true, that this is something that it's something that's always happening. So we're always going to continue to heal from and learn more about our past, even if that's something that we have, come a very long distance from, because that's human nature. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And thanks so much for sharing, Donna. Great to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Tanika, I believe it is. And let me know if I'm mispronouncing your name. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, no, that was perfect. I'm here from London. I'm nervous. This is so cool. I'm nervous, excited. Hey, everyone. I'm really new to astrology. I literally just picked out like maybe like a year ago now, something like that. So forgive me if my question isn't really like making sense or anything. Basically, I kind of just feel really lost in my life at the moment. I feel like I'm struggling to kind of find my place in the world. I feel like I've always kind of struggled with it. And I know like my Chiron is in Cancer, and I recently came out of a really bad relationship that was like emotionally manipulative. My ex-girlfriend like kind of caused me a lot of problems, especially during my Saturn return. We were together from when I was like 29. And I guess my question is that the new moon coming up in Cancer, I feel like that's really important for me to kind of like heal that Chiron Cancer stuff or really go into it. I guess, yeah, my question is like, is there any advice on how I can go about this? Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is going to be, again, the new moon is going to be at 7 degrees Cancer. So it will be conjunct your natal Chiron here. And wherever we have Chiron in our chart is really where we have gifts. But these gifts are typically not recognized earlier in life due to the wounding experience of Chiron. So Chiron is where we experience woundedness that initiates our journey of healing, that takes us full circle into being gifted healers ourselves. Now, the south node of the moon we see in her chart is also in the 4th house. So this would be someone who's coming in with Cancer orientation and sensitivity. Specifically, there's an orientation towards her tribe and her family with her moon in Aquarius 10th house. Or I'm sorry, it's Mercury in Aquarius ruling that south node. This is also where her moon is. So this is someone who's been dedicated again to the tribe, Aquarius. And it's in a very providing type of way. 10th house, Virgo, it's like, you know, when other people are missing something, lacking something, that's when, you know, Tanika's going to step up. What do you need? How can we get this taken care of? And in a Virgo way, it's very deeply service oriented. Now, she's been there, done that. This is all the past. So some of the wounding experience here is it's just like I'm cleaning up other people's messes all day long. And what about me? You know, Chiron in Cancer is this experience of there's no support. It's like you're the mother for everybody else. And then who's taking care of you can be some of this wounding experience. Now, this new moon here is about recognizing your own gifts of healing, recognizing your maternal nature, recognizing how much you do show up and how much you do care. That's part of the root evolutionary journey. When the moon's north node is in the 10th house, is that someone has a caring attitude, is oftentimes very devoted to the family early in life. Sometimes there's a necessary movement, distancing, to come into the self-recognition of your own capabilities, because you've got things to do, you've got things to share. It's not just about cleaning up everybody else's messes, taking care of all the dishes, being everybody else's maid. Now we can see here in Tanika's chart, she has a Lilith on the south node in Virgo. So this is going to be part of the soul story, as this is a high priestess. This is someone who's very deeply devoted and caring, but this may not have been recognized, or there may have been the you know, projection onto of not being good enough or not being pure enough. And then there's all these high expectations. You know, it's everything's got to be perfect. And that's part of what she's liberating herself from. North Node in Pisces, it gets easier. There's more support. She's got creative gifts where she gets to relax and go with the flow. That's the medicine of this new moon for you, Tanika, is this is going to be the healing path with this Chiron in Cancer in the second house. This is Cancer and second house Taurus medicines that I'm going to prescribe you. And that's going to be more nice long hot baths, more naps and snacks, and slowing down and really taking the time to enjoy and nourish and nurture your own inner child. That's going to be a huge path to healing for you throughout this life, because she has this Chiron trine sextile her moon's nodes. This is a signature of a natural healer. She's caring for and providing for others automatically all the time. And turning that inward on yourself is really going to bring you on this fast path of mastery, where it's like, hey, you've got things to teach. You've got things to share. You're a bit of a powerhouse. You're a leader. The world's needing you out there. So you can't simply be depleting all your time and energy with these little dramas or these small people or these trivial things. And that's why the self-care is going to be the thing that actually allows for this refreshing and renewal. And then you recognize that you can do what you want to. You don't even need other people's permission or go ahead. You can do it. You can go out there and do what you want to. North Node in Pisces is really being followed by a vision, a calling, something that you'll feel good about by being connected in the world. But again, this new moon brings up a lot of feelings. And so this is the time for those baths and those, taking the time to process, because I think that'll bring you into a bit more clarity through this self-connection. What it is that excites you and what it is that you want to do in the world, because that's really what your soul is here to do. Any questions about that?
No, that's kind of how I've been feeling. I feel like I kind of just want to go off the grid for the next 30 days or so, and kind of just, really hone back into my heart. So no, that was really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And the work that you can do and how you can be involved in the world does not have to be on a public billboard. It may be more behind the scenes. Maybe it's boundary pushing. So it's for, the people that get it. And that's the North Node ruler being in the 8th house. It does tend to be boundary pushing. It is, going into the deep end, going into intimacy, transformation and catalyzing others in powerful ways, but it can be behind the scenes and still work out quite well.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Thank you, Timothy. I like the work a lot, so thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks for joining us, Tanika. Awesome having you here.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Continuing to go down the line. And again, for those who need to go next, hit reactions, and there you can raise your hand. All right. Good to see you, Gwendolyn. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Timothy. You're so wise. So I just wanted your wisdom on, I've got the North Node, conjunct Uranus on my moon in the 1st house. And it's physically, I'm feeling very like an alien. Absolutely. Like the more I get in touch with who I am, the less I belong where I'm at. As far as feeling connected with, you say community, so finding the right community. And I know where they are. They're not, physically in my space. So it's just been hard. I know that my biology is supposed to be talking to me, but I am in pain. And my muscles and stuff are, I'm getting older, but I just, this is really physically very challenging for me. The new moon will be giving me a grand trine in my water signs. And I mean, life is fine. I guess I know a lot about astrology, right? So I know that this is what I need to go through, but it scares me. This Uranus approaching the North Node right on my moon does cause me concern, and I know it's all for my good. And then what I was thinking about while you're talking with other people is that my South Node is ruled by Uranus, which is really triggering me right now and asking me to transform into the next level. And obviously this is resistance that I'm feeling, because why else would I be physically feeling so, well, I'm exhausted and I'm fighting that exhaustion, I think. And so I know I'm going through this is major for me. I also have Neptune opposing my sun, which is difficult too. So anyway, I just wanted your thoughts on it.
Yeah, totally hear you. And the main transit that's going to be affecting health and energy levels is we see Chiron at 16 Aries, exactly square your natal Mars, 16 Cancer. So this would be the time for the health crises to be coming up. And we know with Chiron, the health crises is connected to the healing journey. That doesn't mean it's necessarily easy, especially when we have more questions than answers. And because this is an ongoing transit, that may be the case. Now, we do have some good hints here with this Mars in Cancer, right on the IC. It's a very sensitive physical nature. Okay. As is, Sun in Virgo, which you mentioned, Neptune is opposing, can dial up that sensitivity. Although I see this more so being a search for purpose and meaning that's going to connect your individual self-expression with what's going on in the world. That can sometimes be confusing, like, who am I and what is the purpose of my life, is a typical Neptune Sun opposition. But it can also be very creatively inspiring to explore those questions. Can really bring a lot together without having to, figure it out overnight. I totally hear you on the Uranus moon transit. My moon's at 10 Taurus, so I am just coming out of that transit. I was moving. I moved for about 2 years while Uranus was transiting my moon in Taurus. So this to me is about getting the right environment, getting the right space, whatever your needs are for body and sensitivity, because Mars in Cancer really needs a safe feeling environment. And that's the hint we have from Chiron squaring Mars, is that these health challenges can be connected to a lack of safety or a lack of emotional support. And that can show up in the body, that can show up in tightness or pain or lethargy. And that's easy to say. And I'm not one of those people, I get very careful when it comes to health, be just like, oh yeah, every health thing is a spiritual or emotional problem. It's like, well, that's an easy thing to say. But this Mars in Cancer can highlight this, that the need for a safe feeling environment can actually affect the body or physical. And Chiron squaring that Mars could bring that up at this time. Even what's going on in the world, the 12th house is such a collective house that can even be affecting your physical or emotional nature in a way that, 12th house Pisces sensitivity type of way. It's hard to even fathom how the things that affect us sometimes do. That's where I think this Uranus on your moon with the North Node, this is actually where evolution wants to happen. This is where progress can happen in a tremendous way. And what this is telling me is a need for boundaries, separation, going in your own direction, that is honoring this moon in Taurus. Need for sovereignty is Taurus in the first house. Need for freedom here. But it's honoring your biology. Like you said, there's going to be a way and a pace that's needed. Now, this Uranus is just starting this transit. So for me, it was very obvious. I moved to North Carolina because I needed an environment that was peaceful, because I was going crazy and having panic attacks. And I went through 2 years of no stability and no healthy environment until I finally landed here just a few months ago, which is the first environment I have lived in this lifetime where I don't feel overwhelmed by the sounds, the clutter, the people, the activity, the energy. So that's some of what this moon in Taurus first house needs, is sovereignty, to honor your own natural biology, way, pace. You know, moon in Taurus has a lot to do with food. It's going to have a lot to do with food as well. It's like what is nourishing and nurturing your body and your sensitivity can be really groundbreaking experiment. And that's what Uranus is. It's not about knowing, it's just about willing to experiment, try new things out, be open to alternatives, maybe bring in some experts that are of a completely different, you know, field or direction that you would normally seek from. And there can be really groundbreaking support coming to you with this Uranus in your first house. But it really is ultimately going to be about having the necessary freedom to break in your own direction in some way, shape, or form, and not being swept off your feet by what's going on in other people, or the world, or their dramas. Because again, that could also be something that's actually having more of an effect or an influence that may even be easy to understand. And let me know if there's anything I can further clarify, because that's kind of vast in general. I get that.
No, I just don't want to get sick. And I feel like I'm in just a very precarious time. As you know, I've got a daughter, and that's drama still continuing, but I'm really put strong boundaries on that. But yeah, that's rearing its head. And I think that, you know, even though I'm mentally, I'm like, and emotionally, I'm, you know, I've got this, my body thinks different. So one of the things I've come to realize about myself is I think I'm okay, but I'm really not. Does that make sense? I mean,
your body knows. Yeah. Your body's letting you know what's actually going on.
And I don't want to go back to court, and, you know, I'll do it for her, but, you know, that was just, and she's my daughter. She's only 12. She'll be 13 this fall. So it's like, I can't. And then I feel like I'm on Gilead, which we all do. We all do after that horrible what's happening. So, but there's no safe place on planet Earth, really, probably. I don't know, our country's, I'm in Texas. So I feel like if Gilead's going to happen, I feel like I'm right in the heartland, right? It's like, oh my gosh. So did you watch Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, but don't take it seriously, you know.
I know.
I know it's easier said than done, but it's like, this is where you can actually be liberating your soul by doing something radically different. And I know what's going on in the world, and I feel it too. You know, I have the 12th house Neptune sensitivity as well. And boy, I get depressed. But it's not going to be the final thing. You know, this whole thing that's going on in the world right now, this could actually be a hidden blessing, because all of this emotion and intensity is going to catalyze a reaction, and we can take one step back and 2 steps forward. The point here is you've got to take care of yourself. This is about you. And all of the daughter and all of the court case, it is actually the universe giving you what you need to do something different by giving you this huge challenge. It's not going to feel right to just not pay attention to that stuff, but that's what I would actually suggest that you do. Because it's like a game. It's like, you know, you're right. There is no safety in the world. We don't have control over everything. We can only do the best that we can do. This is a lot of Taurus wisdom, you know, and that's what it turns into. It's like, you know, we walk our walk, we breathe, we have our meals, and there's always going to be a drama that's happening in some way, shape, or form in our lives, but we bring it back to center by focusing on what's right in front of us. And I think this is, you know, it's going to be liberating. That's going to be Uranus going over your moon. It's going to first bring up all of this awareness of the missing needs, why there is instability, but then you're going to get so much more stability by giving yourself these creature comforts that may be outlandishly simple or like even dull is like Taurus, but then it ends up being radical, just having that extra snack, whatever it may be.
So I want to just save something because I think it's important for all the listeners. What I got too is that the most powerful thing we all have to contribute is our inner connection to source, which is unique for each of us, right? Because we're vessels of source. And so protecting that inner connection in these times, it looks like we're ignoring it, but we're not. We're actually protecting and cultivating the only thing that's going to overturn what's happening anyway, with each of our internal connection to source. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're just, some of us souls are more getting lessons that are turning our focus to become more selfish. That's harder for some people to do. Some people, Donald Trump, he doesn't have a hard time, being enormously selfish, so I totally hear what you're saying. And again, as the South Node transits this Neptune Venus in the 7th house, these creature comforts that may seem enormously contrary to your heart and your belief system are actually going to be where these spiritual lessons are coming in about self-preservation. And you'll be able to come full circle and offer your heart back to the world, because that is your special gift and sensitivity and contribution to others. And that's also, again, where you're going to have to make sure that you're practicing being enormously selfish. That's, again, where there's these spiritual lessons coming in that are going to be they already are the lessons you're working with, but it's, again, they're spiritual lessons that are basically about including yourself in your inner child. So inviting that to the dinner table, and again, really focusing on that right now, I think is going to allow you to come full circle in the long term, because you are someone that wants to offer service to others in a very healing and healthy way. And the universe will conspire for you to do that too.
Okay.
So I wanted to just share that last bit, and thank you. So good to hear from you, Gwendolyn. Really appreciate your sharing.
I am painting, so I'll show that sometime. So yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
That's the other major component to this community that I love, is we have to go into our catharsis, and then we need to heal and share our paintings. It's so beautiful what comes out of that. So looking forward to that, Gwendolyn. Okay, I'm moving on to Londa Love. And again, those who need to get to things, go to reactions at the bottom of the window and there raise your hand. Okay. How are you doing, Londa? And am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, that's right. Yes, thanks, Timothy. I'm good.
Cool. How can I help you?
Okay, so my question is about my work and the sharing of my gifts. So I was sort of working more in the alternative community, and I thought that's where I would always offer my gifts, and it felt safe. And recently I've started a PhD. Well, I'm in my second year now, at the end of my second year. And professors at the university have started to recognise me and ask me to do workshops on their courses, and I've been asked to mentor graduate students. So it feels like a complete shift. It's exciting and it's also daunting. And from my sort of amateur reading of my chart, it looks like maybe it's something I should do, and it fits with what I can see. But yeah, I'm just wondering about the sort of transits and whether they're supportive of this. And also, I think my Chiron return's coming up in the next couple of years. So I'm just wondering whether that could sort of sabotage such a big change if I'm feeling vulnerable. So yeah, that's kind of my question. I can't hear you, Timothy. You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
So it's a perfect question. And I think that you're lining up with your soul's evolutionary intentions on point. So we see in Londa's chart, her moon's north node is in Capricorn conjunct the midheaven. And this says, hey, this soul is needed out there in the world. This can be a movement towards building, towards being involved, in institutions. Now we can look at the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn, which we see in Gemini. And this further highlights institutionalized education and learning. So absolutely, you can learn by being involved in the worlds, other authorities, other teachers. You can be involved in business. You can build new schools, be involved in other schools. And the other thing I want to reflect back is the Saturn in Gemini signature can also say, do more than just one thing. So you can, continue to do alternative work, have your own unique and specialized field, taking things in your own direction, and do both simultaneously. Gemini is about juggling. It's about diversity. Gemini can read several pages in every book on the bookshelf, and that's okay. So break the rules, do things out of order, and you can do both and more. And again, being involved in the worlds, business, education, hitting the nail on the head. This is where you're going to find you're actually needed. This is the signature in the South Nodes in Cancer. This is a naturally empathic and caring person. And so you've got things that the world needs to know about. The world doesn't know about emotional intelligence. The world doesn't know about a need for freedom and women's rights. And, you can really be a social justice warrior. That's this Aries signature here. And that's the other part of the question is, what about this Chiron return? And we see first Chiron's going to transit the ascendant, and then Mars, and then Chiron, and then the moon. So you're about to begin this whole Chiron, Aries, first house journey. Now, what this is going to be is a healing of your confidence to initiate your own direction, to be a leader and a trailblazer. And that's why I mentioned and highlighted Saturn can do both. You can be involved in the world, you can be involved in institutions, you can be taking what is nice from that education, you can be learning from everything that's horrible and corrupt at the same time. And that can push you into the initiation of your own direction. So this to me says in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be this initiation, or what may even be a healing through separation in some way, shape, or form. And that tends to be a part of the North Node and Capricorn journey as well. Say someone grows up being the caretaker of their family. I see you as a protector. It's like when other people are in trouble, boom, Londa comes to life. She's defending, she's protecting, she's standing up for others. She's standing up for the women and the children. Been there, done that for lifetimes. Very service oriented, very caring. There can be themes and learning lessons of necessary separation. So to heal and to have your own autonomy, your own energy, your own integrity. There's also so many lessons around recognizing your own skills, capabilities, and self-worth. And that's where the education and the institution can be very liberating. It's like, look what you're doing. You are a part of this. You are contributing. Absolutely, you can. But it's also about healing from any of the, dragged into being a mom for those who don't actually want to heal, for example, or where there's any theme of disrespect or being used or being thrown under the bus. That's where there would be a necessary healing through separation. But ultimately, this is to come into the confidence, the autonomy to initiate your own direction, because Chiron in Aries is the healer warrior, is the healing through defending, protecting yourself. And then it's like, hey, you can lead, inspire other women to be their own warrior, to be standing up and initiating their own direction. This is where I think you're going to be a huge inspiration to others, is by being this powerhouse woman. and flexing your muscles and not having to hide, and then teaching through being a guide and leading through example. Does that make sense? Any other questions about that?
I don't think so. No, that really makes sense. And I like I hadn't even thought about the Saturn in Gemini and what that could mean. So that's really, really helpful in sort of seeing that I don't really have to choose it. I can do both. Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Londa. Appreciate you being here and sharing. Wishing you the best.
Thank you.
Continuing down the line, Nick, I see that you have your hand raised. If you would like to look at your chart, can I get your birth info?
Yes, that would be September 18th, 1969, and 4:19 a.m. and Edmonds, Washington.
Perfect. And how can I help you, Nick?
So I've been looking at Venus, which is on my ascendant, and Saturn is opposing it right now. And I know Venus is a planet that I haven't really learned a lot about myself in astrology. I've focused on other planets, but now that I am finding, as this time with Saturn opposing Venus, I am actually wanting to know more about what Venus is, and also how can I work with this transit? So that's like in general my question.
Great question. So I'll start off just by generally speaking about Venus. Venus is fundamentally the principle of resonance, harmony, reflection, mirroring, as well as regeneration. So I mentioned in the recent video, Moon, Venus are the most feminine planets to do with what's inside of ourselves. Venus, specifically being the principle of resonance, is how what is inside is relating to what is outside. This is why Venus has so much to do with both what we internally value as well as relationships. So Venus rules two signs of the zodiac. Two planets rule two signs, Mercury and Venus. These are both the dual signs. Our mind, Mercury, functions through duality. Venus rules the senses, also rules duality. Okay, so the Taurus side of Venus is what we value in our hearts. It brings us into our center. It's our taste, it's our style, it's our way and pace of doing things. That's Venus in Taurus. It is, again, sensuality, it is pleasure and enjoyment, and everyone has a way of filling their glass up or returning to center through this self-connection, and that's the Taurus side of Venus. It is the hermit. The hermit is that which has the capacity to fill her or himself up without anything external. So this is very Buddhist, for example. It's meditation, it's somatic, focusing on the environment, what we're feeling, hearing, beauty. This is all a way of self-fulfillment. So we'll talk about that in your chart, what that is with Venus 12th house Leo. Now, Venus rules the electromagnetic field that is emitted from our own heart chakra. So what we love, what we value, that internal connection creates this electromagnetism that attracts people of a similar wavelength who value similar things as ourselves. So our taste, our style, and what we value, that's a part of what's going to connect us to others. That's a part of what we're sharing. And when we go through a transit that's affecting Venus, well, that's the part of ourself that's evolving. So we're changing what we value, how we're relating to ourselves internally, and how we're connecting and sharing what we value with others simultaneously. This will especially be the case right now in your own experience, Nick, because that Saturn is right on the 7th house cusp of relationships, and Venus is right on the ascendant. So this brings up this dichotomy between 1st house self and 7th house other. Saturn on the descendant is a time of building new structures for a relationship. So this next 2.5 years, Saturn's going to transit your 7th house, and it's a time of actually building more relationship that is mutually supportive, that allows for collaboration, that allows for sharing. But because this transit is just kicking off, it's probably beginning through a sense of lack, loneliness, alienation. I don't have recognition. I don't feel seen. I don't feel special. Well, that will be some of the needs of Venus and Leo. Venus in Leo wants to feel special, wants to be able to share and radiate and be seen and be loud and be warm and playful. That's an important thing for Venus in Leo. Leo, the sun, simply radiates that creative sexual energy outwardly spontaneously. It is a radiation. It is a showing. It is a warm and inspiring heart chakra. It's creative. It's playful. Venus and Leo. Let's play with costumes. Let's act and, role play and get into stories. That's all going to be part of this Venus and Leo. And in the 12th house, it's very big-hearted. It's very creative again. There's going to be many creative gifts with Venus, Leo in the 12th house. But it's flowing. It's romantic. Venus in the 12th house is a bleeding heart romantic. Poetry, music. Now, part of this Saturn opposite Venus in the 12th is like, hey, when I try to hang on to somebody, they go away. When I seek out love and relationship, it's like a pipe dream. It's like, it's like the wandering poet is a part of this Venus in Leo. And what I would actually suggest is kind of get into that. I have a 12th house Venus too, and be the bleeding heart poet, feel the broken heart, let it inspire your art, your sharing, your creativity. Because right now I wouldn't take it too seriously. Right now, there's not going to be the person, the thing. It's like it's like an empty hall. But fill that empty hall. First, it's with the Taurus side of Venus. What you love, that you want to share, let that lead you out into the world. Let that bring you into new clubs, new connections, new schools to learn things, join some classes. That's where all this is going to lead you. So that way you can build a bridge between having support in relationships and feeling seen and feeling special and being able to share these creative gifts. Again, Saturn brings these developmental periods to us through the experience of lack at first. That's where we have to apply a conscious effort. That's where we build things, and that's where things are going to take you, is building more supportive and long-term relationship into the future. But I wouldn't hide. It's really about going out there, not getting defeated, not running back into isolation. That's going to be really important to keep your chin up at this time. Any questions about that? Make sense, Nick?
That is helpful. I do, particularly in these last couple of years with the pandemic, there's been a lot of just relationships broken, and do feel a lot of lack and emptiness in relationships right now. So I do feel that. And with, the whole creativity, I think there's been a lot in my life where, or maybe just not even the creativity, but just what you spoke about, Venus. I've not really been able to fully live into what that is. And just feeling like I need to live into that. And so I think it is gonna take me just not giving up and just being out there. And sometimes that feels a little hard right now, but just finding those ways and learning those things. So I think that's been helpful. So.
Good. Glad to hear that, Nick. And thank you for sharing. Again, I just recommend keep moving, keep flowing. If one thing lose interest, move on to the next thing. And
Okay,
that's going to
yeah,
allow that momentum to keep you
keep going.
carried forward.
Okay, okay. I will
Sweet.
find out where it takes me and where it ends. So, okay,
Beautiful. Thanks,
thanks.
Nick. Thanks for joining us and looking forward to hearing from you next time as well. All right, Annie, I'll go ahead, and looks like you're unmuted. So great. How are you doing, Annie?
Now, I want to ask about, so it's really late here, sorry, so very hard to think, but I wanted to ask about, my Venus is in the 12th house, and I've got Neptune is in the sixth house, yeah. And I wanted to ask about that kind of idea of, you know, that the 12th house, that the North Node is supposed to be your destiny and your sort of where you're going, and just that dynamic between whether if I'm working too much with a Neptunian energy, is that going backwards karmically, or should I be working on something that's more like teaching, like as in I used to teach music, and so whether I should go back into that area, like, you know, as that kind of turned into a bit of a disaster. So I just wanted to know some advice, basically. I've had a really difficult time, and yeah.
I hear you. So I think the bottom line with this Neptune South Node signature is it's going to be about ultimately making sure you're not self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
Because the North Node in Taurus in the 12th house so much is about self-fulfillment. And that Venus exactly on the North Node is such a distinct signature of having these creative gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding beauty, sensuality, the body, all things Venus. It's holding open the doorway to your soul's evolution. Now, you just had your nodal return, and this can be challenging because the soul is breaking open its evolutionary intentions, but sometimes that's not always known or clear to us while it's happening. So this is the time to be aligning with the 12th house Taurus theme.
Okay.
Again, this is ultimately about being fulfilled by having a connection to something meaningful that's filling you up. It's tasty, it's enjoyable. So there is going to absolutely be a bottom line with that Neptune on the South Node signature, which is simply going to be ending any patterns of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or being used or being victim or being thrown around by what's around you. That's the frying pan you're pulling out of yourself out of.
Yeah.
By recognizing that you have everything that you need within you. But it's ultimately going to bring you on a journey of self-recognition as well. That's the Pluto polarity point in the 10th, that you are capable, you're gifted, you have things to offer the world. You may be on a direction of going more out there from being previously invisible or behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That can all be a part of this as well.
Okay. Yeah, but okay, because I sing in a church choir. I know that sounds weird, but I've had previously like been more pagan and all that, and then I kind of got into this church choir, which I really love. The singing is really beautiful, but I just feel like it's not true to who I am spiritually, really either. And so I've got that sort of thing, like where should I take my music into that? I want to take my music. So going with that musical thing is actually a good direction for me then, like for my future, you know. I'm about to be a grandmother, and through a whole lot of IVF and weird stuff, it's just that my whole fertility journey has been so weird. It's just been so full on that actually now I'm wondering, like now I'm going to be a grandmother. I sort of want to be a guide as well to my family, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so do you think the music thing is the way to go, is what I'm sort of asking? Go back to maybe recording or something.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
just to reflect back a bit of what I heard is it a decision between being a grandmother or being there for your family or doing what you want to? No, this decision does not exist.
No.
It's not an either or. And again, if you're going to make it an either or, that's self-sacrifice. That does not need to be the case.
No, it was just more whether it was right for me to go, how you kind of live true to that North Node. Is that what karmically you're supposed to do, living true to your North Node? Is that the idea? Or is that like a more many lifetimes kind of idea?
Oh no, it's this lifetime.
Okay.
This is our potential and where our soul wants to go, bottom line.
Okay, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a very distinct signature that says your soul has already self-sacrificed and been behind the scenes. There's no reason to play small. And it's, again, whatever is fulfilling you from the inside out, that is your compass point. That's the direction you're moving in, bottom line. You'll give more back to others without even having to try.
Okay.
By putting these needs first.
Okay, thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Great to hear from you, Annie. Okay, going down the line to Peta. Great to hear from you, Peta. How are you doing?
Timothy, I'm well, thank you. I'm well. And I just want to say thank you so much for your beautiful Black Moon Lilith video that I've listened to about 3 times since it came out. And so my question today is really about
the chart, by the way.
Oh yes, please. And sorry, I didn't submit my information this time.
No problem. Can I just get your date, time, and place?
Sure. It is the 20th of October, 1970. 1:57 a.m. Johannesburg, South Africa.
Perfect. Okay, and go ahead with your question.
So with the Black Moon Lilith being conjunct my South Node and sextile my moon in Cancer, and the new moon transits coming up next week, and I suppose the work that I'm doing with, in the last month and a half, I've started a women's group, and we are dealing with the mother wound and inner child work and becoming one's own inner mother. And the group meets on a Wednesday. And so it's just really sort of this whole thing of finding the Black Moon Lilith in my chart and how that all relates, and the transits that are happening next week. And then I just wonder if you can talk to that a little bit about, so I suppose there's a slight bit of trepidation about the depth of feeling that I'm looking at going through in the next week and the next weeks, and if there's anything that you can add to that, or what to be careful of, etc., etc. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it's perfect time to be going out there in the world and to be building this group or building this structure. So, as I mentioned to some of the previous charts we've looked at too, it's like this North Node on the midheaven. It's about keeping yourself afloat by continuing to move and to be involved and to build, despite what can be an emotional overwhelm. So much intensity and drama going on out there in the world or at home or in the family,
Yeah.
So it is the time, this is Uranus transiting your Saturn, North Node on the Saturn, to build it, to do it, to be the authority, to be the boss, to be in charge, because you can really be anchoring and building something in the world that is very needed. And you're hitting the nail exactly on the head. So I have to say, I don't know if there's anything to, be wary of other than continuing to balance listening to your own needs with the needs of the group, and to play that most needed role of introducing these ways of listening to each other's needs and showing up for support, because that's what Saturn and Taurus here can really, really be a master of at a time when it's really needed as well. So I can only say it's the perfect time, and it looks clear. Anything else I can add to that?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my own chart because I can't really see so well on the chart that you've got there. So if I'm not looking at the screen, that's why. So part of the finding Black Moon Lilith conjunct my South Node is Pallas Athena conjunct my North Node, which are both in retrograde. Can you speak to how that is, because that's also trine my moon, how that is affecting me right now?
Well, I'll just generally speak, this Black Moon Lilith on the South Node, it's going to be connected to Lilith's story.
Yeah.
So, there being this suppression or, lack of recognition of the skill, the devotion, the focus that you would naturally have. And this to me is a bit of a high priestess signature.
Sure.
So this can also be, healing some of the older high priestess wounding, the sexual healing,
sure. Timothy, sorry, yeah.
Well, I was also just going to say, a wound that can have to do with like not being good enough or impure can be some of this Black Moon Lilith South Node signature as well.
Yeah.
The North Node in Pisces would just simply be about letting go, forgiveness, not having to be perfect, letting these stories that were projected upon dissolve.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. It's just so amazing to me. In May of 2016, coming out of a period of what I suppose the medical establishment would call psychosis and I call spiritual emergency, I met a tarot reader, and and I was still, really in the other world. And I said to him, I am Lilith, goddess whore of Babylon. And it was such a bold statement to make, But I obviously had some read about Lilith somewhere, otherwise I don't know where that would have come from within me. But that archetype of integrating the nun and the prostitute into the high priestess has probably been a big theme in my life. So thank you so much.
For sure. And any planets we have conjunct the South Node, those are going to be gifts that we're bringing in from past lives, as well as very definable parts of the personality. What we identify with is planets conjunct the South Node. So absolutely, you're a Lilith. You are connected to her story and her healing, and we'll be bringing in some of her gifts. And that's that Lilith signature. Pallas on the North Node is going to have a wisdom and brilliance of communities, how to connect. It's very alternative, groundbreaking in the kind of visionary seeing of the future. It's part of what I would say with that Pallas North Node. Thanks for sharing, Peter. Great to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Timothy. It's great to be here as always. Thank you.
All right. Perkins, I'll ask you to unmute your mic, and would you like to look at your chart today?
Yeah, it's Sarah. I did try to change my name, but
no worries. I got your chart.
Okay.
Here you are, and what's going on?
So that's it, yeah. I wanted to ask about an historical event, to go back in time, if that's possible,
Sure.
to November, December 2016. So this was a time where I lost my mind, and I kind of think about it every day because I think I just can't work it out really what happened. But I'll tell you what happened in the spring of 2016. I fostered a Kurdish Iranian boy who was fleeing persecution, political persecution. So he'd made his way from Iran to England, you know, being smuggled across borders. And his father was disappeared, probably executed. And when he arrived, he was completely traumatized. And I immediately, being this quite Neptunian character, absorbed a lot of the trauma that he came with. Partly because he didn't speak any English, and I'm a therapist and I work with language, I work with talking with people, but I couldn't communicate with him with words. And so I ended up absorbing all this trauma. And then I think it came to a point where he was so distressed and I couldn't help him and I couldn't talk to him and I felt so helpless that I literally just took energetically all his trauma. I don't know how I did it, but that's then started a decline in me and I started to become very, very fearful. And he kept showing me pictures, photographs of public executions in Iran, which triggered something, I'm sure, in my memory or my psyche, which made me even more terrified. And then November the 4th, 2016, he ran away. He was in complete fight or flight. He ran away, and I was just devastated because I poured all my love and soul into this boy. Like I'd given him everything, and I felt like he'd run away with my soul. And given that I've been grieving loss of family all my life, really, I was just devastated. And he ran away and he left me with all this trauma, essentially. And I just declined into the darkest reaches of my psyche. I can't tell you, it was the most terrifying experience of my life. And I became completely psychotic. I thought that people around me were going to die. I had to choose who was going to live and die. I would sacrifice myself on every occasion. I believed that I was going to die. I believed I was possessed and there was something inside me trying to kill me. I had the energy traveling up my spine and I thought that was evidence that I was possessed. And I can't tell you the terror. I was just completely terrified for 2 months. And then in between Christmas and New Year 2016, and prior to that, I'd been to a shamanic drumming group, and my soul, I was trying to get rid of this possession that I thought I had. But instead, what happened was that my soul was kind of drummed out of my body. So the whole time I was in this psychosis, I was actually not in my body, which was even more terrifying and kind of made me feel even more like I was hanging on to this life by a thread almost. And then Christmas to New Year 2016, that's when I really started to believe that I was going to die. And the night of New Year's Eve 2016, I knew that I was going to die, that I was going to be executed, and I was reliving it. And I absolutely believed I was there. It was like a flashback or something. And I just surrendered to my death because I knew it was going to happen. And it was a surrender in terror. There was nothing peaceful about it. And then the next day I woke up and I was fine. 2 months of psychosis finished. But me, traumatized by this event, which I couldn't talk about to anyone. And I haven't talked about with anyone since, really. So I was just curious if you have anything to say about that. And thanks for listening to me because I haven't told anyone that story.
Yeah, I super appreciate you sharing. There's not so much I'm going to have to say, but I really appreciate you sharing this because this is real life. I mean, this is completely valid experience. We'll talk about why you had this experience, but this is also a reality when it comes to any type of therapeutic or healing work. Can we take on someone else's trauma? Absolutely. This is not new agey woo-woo. This is known about by all therapists, that this type of taking on of trauma is a very real thing and something to be very wary of. I've had my own experiences of this as well. Now, we've also mentioned in your chart before, Sarah, this very distinct signature. The North Node in Taurus, ruled by Venus, conjunct the South Node in the 4th house, this necessary emotional reliving of the past. So to understand that past, and guess what? It's not a pretty past with the South Node in Scorpio. Has there been war? Has there been execution in the past? There has been. And that's why this interaction with this person is more symbolic than simply taking on this person's trauma. This person's trauma is reflecting your own past life trauma. And that's going to make this psychosis all the more intense, because it's like your soul was stuck in this repeating pattern. Now, it's like your soul's doing this sometimes on a mechanism level to purge this out. That's why there is this necessary reliving. North Node Taurus is like wringing out the mop of all of the past bullshit, but how your soul is specifically doing it is through this necessary reliving of past. So it's not actually a repetition, but it feels like it. And then through the feeling of repeating, there is the wringing out of the sponge. That's specifically the signature that your soul's doing to heal. And then you're getting wrung out, like you're getting clearer, you're getting more free as you truly integrate and heal from the traumas of the past, because this is what happens on a soul level. This is what I actually study in EA through birth charts, is soul trauma as it takes place over lifetimes. And most of us are out of body and traumatized in this one, because of past life traumas that were so traumatic, it broke our soul. So when we have that experience of being out of body, it is one of the scariest experiences. It's also extremely common. This is when we are in a trauma response. Now, what's interesting is that what was happening this exact month of November 2016 was a South Node Neptune conjunction to the exact degree. Now, those of you who are here at the start of the meeting, I pointed out a collective transit, which is Neptune stations retrograde, trine the South Node of the moon in Scorpio on the day of the new moon, and that's going to bring up past life bleed through. So we see the signature here of, first of all, Neptune on the South Node, boundarylessness. We're dissolving into the other. We're dissolving into the collective. Psychoses is Neptune. Hysteria. What's mine versus what's theirs? There's no boundaries, so we don't know. But it was also aspecting your own planets in Scorpio. Oops. Where we see there is that South Node and Sun. So that Neptune conjunct the South Node was trining your own South Node in Scorpio. Okay, see that? It really is this signature, and it's in the 8th house too. And this is when, you know, other people's bullshit becomes our own, a bleed through. That is the Scorpio archetype. That's what you've experienced in the past. You were executed for bullshit that wasn't your own. And there was the loss of family through war. So it's a really amazing energetic interaction with this child. It's like he had to come into your life to trigger this psychosis, which on the deeper level was a soul purging. You were violently vomiting for 2 months straight to release the traumas coming from past lifetimes that you could not process or digest then, so you processed it in this life. And this child was simply the trigger of that because he was a mirror of the past.
Yeah.
Really, really cool symbolism.
So my theory that I was reliving a past life execution, you think is correct, because that's my
Distinctly. Yes. And this
Yeah.
is real life. Again, this is going to be a little bit ahead of most people's comfort zone and understanding of things, but this is what I study. And this is what all souls are actually doing. Subtly or not so subtly, there's a necessary re-traumatization to bring us back to the prior trauma and then heal it. That's essentially what any trigger is. And that was just a big trigger that catalyzed a big emotional purge on the soul level. That's Scorpio in the 4th house.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Thank you.
I will also add, because you've been someone who's done this, you will know how, and this is something that's very ahead of its time, how to heal on the soul level through this emotional purging. That's the stuff that excites me the most. That's the healing that we all want to get to.
Well, it's certainly given me a different understanding of psychosis, really, and how we just medicate it,
Right. Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
we just
Are we
medicate
healing the
it when
soul if we're medicating? Absolutely not. We're actually causing the soul to not vomit the poison, and it just gets shoved down.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and everybody listening to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's again, I get really excited because it really is scary to be a front runner and to experience these things. But I have to say that to me is what it is. It's like your soul has, and I'm one of these souls too. It's like I'll run into somebody and then have a soul vomit, like over nothing. And then I'm remembering these past lives traumas, that's a distinct signature in my chart. So it's like, we have a gift here where what barely scratches us can catalyze this. We're learning how to share this necessary process with others so other people can learn how to do the same thing, how to access that. Because what I actually think is that was only a psychosis because we didn't understand what it was at the time. Had you had a group of healers around you, they would have recognized that as a major healing opportunity. So it was not a psychosis, it was a soul purge, but that's something that's ahead of our species understanding. We don't know when those things happen, what's actually happening. And then you're right, we prescribe drugs and stuff to just like deal, but there's much more meaningful process going on beneath the surface. And that Scorpio signature in your chart says you're in touch with that much deeper process.
And of course, Indigenous communities would support that, wouldn't they, if someone was going through that?
Yes, it's a
rather than
shamanic
me being all on my own and everybody just thinking I was crazy,
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so
again
much
for sharing, because this is something I guarantee you other people have experienced similar things in their lives as well.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Sarah.
Thank
Great to
you.
hear from you as always. Okay, I'm going to move to Anne Marie. How are you doing, Anne?
Hi, Timothy. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, besides this splinter.
Yeah, that sucks. It's terrible. That was such an amazing story from Sarah. It's really helpful, even though I haven't gone through exactly the same thing, but similar things. Do you have my chart or do you need that?
I got it.
Okay. So I wrote in the community a little bit about my current situation. I'm supposed to start this job tomorrow, actually, which is kind of horrible timing. The timing of everything right now is so weird. It's like nothing seems to be aligning in the correct way. I'm starting the job tomorrow. Thank God I'm not actually working with clients yet doing massage. They're just training me in this modality, but I'm still gonna have to touch someone. But I don't have a place to live after July 8th. And I've been looking at places, it's just not lining up. And yeah, it's hard. I kind of dropped the ball with things, but then I also have put in a lot of effort in these past 6 months. I was living off savings, and then I tried to get help and therapy to deal with my anxiety so I could go out and work and everything. And it's just, so now I'm in the situation where I feel really stressed because, you know, I have to have a conversation with them tomorrow at this job about like what is happening going forward. And if I don't find a place to live, which I don't feel like I'm going to, and I don't really care about being in the city, my options are to be homeless, which is not going to happen. I wouldn't be able to, it's not going to happen. To go back to New York and live in a small apartment with my mother at almost 40 years old, which is like brings up a lot of shame, and her building is like haunted and it's weird and it's creepy, and I can't imagine going and massaging and then like coming back to that environment every day. And I also don't feel, I think it would be putting myself in a cage, and I'm really, really, really upset about it. So I've been looking up, I don't want to do anything out of desperation, but I've been trying to feel into like what I need to do. And the main thing, I mean, I obviously need money and stuff. I need to be outside. I need to be in the sun and around trees and things like that. And so I was looking into trying to go to one of those like live, work, community type of situations, but I feel on one level like a fraud because I'm, you know, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I'm going to go join like a coffee farm and work and live in a community like that. But a part of me wants to do that. But then I'm researching things, and it's like, you know, I saw like this Buddhist community, but it's like they have all these rules like, you know, no cosmetics, no profanity, no eating afternoon. And I think that's like fine for some people that need discipline like that. I'm not really looking for that. And I'm just, so I don't know. You know, I appreciate what you had said in some of your videos about, you know, like letting your heart break with things, because I've just been crying, but I got to get it together. So that's my situation. So, you know, what is this new moon kind of telling me right now? That's kind of my question, if that makes sense.
It sure does. And I have to apologize. I think I'm going to break your heart further.
Great.
But this mourning and feeling is some of the best you can do, because your North Node's in Cancer, because that's where the new moon is, because Saturn's transiting your IC, there's going to be these experiences where it's like you can't have it perfectly together. And I have to say, wherever Saturn is, we're challenged. There's always Saturn, there's always challenges. We can count on them. They're extremely predictable. And Saturn on the IC is, this sucks. I don't want to live here. I don't want to live with my mom. Would it be the most appropriate time to live with your mom in an uncomfortable environment? It would be the most appropriate time to do so. Because it is. Saturn on the IC is depressing, is heavy. The IC is the mother, it is the past, it is the childhood, and Saturn on the IC forces us there, forces us. We don't want to go there. We don't want to be there. And Saturn says, too bad. Saturn's always the planet that tells us no. Oh, you want this? No. Okay, thanks, Saturn. But here's the thing. It's ultimately going to bring you through this phase of building the environment that you do need, but it's not happening overnight. So it's like if you live with your mom, it's going to be temporary, but it's the Saturn transit, which is ultimately about internal emotional strength development. Saturn's going to put some limitations with environment, put this heaviness, and it is the time to do the emotional weightlifting. It would be really important to communicate this to those that you're doing this new job with, especially if it is hands-on healing type of work. You know, this is actually the opportunity to do the intentions of the North Node, which is to put your emotional needs first. They're being challenged right now. There may not be a perfect, easy solution, but you're doing the best that you can. And it's going to be step by step. to get this housing situation together, to maybe even go through a healing process with the mother, which would be what? It would be one of recognizing I am the one raising myself. I am the one who's the mom, would be an initiation into recognizing your self-worth. That's the type of work that Saturn on the IC brings. There's this work to recognize your self-worth and to take care of yourself and to step up and do those things that may not be the things that we really want to be doing, but they're the things that are allowing us to get through. And it is going to be a temporary situation. And I can really see you getting support as well. And that's the good news, is this Uranus on the descendant is saying there can be new ways of getting support coming in that are different than how you've ever received support before. I really hear you on the Buddhist community, because South Node Capricorn's like, you know what, I've already been Buddhist. You've already done Capricorn in the second house, which is like being a Zen monk. There could be some resistance there. That could also be where there's this learning through processing what is familiar, what is the past. So all I would say here is that there's going to be creative solutions. You can get support, but it may not be totally figured out, finish line. It's more like, what do you need step by step to get through this passageway? And I do think that ultimately it is going to be about listening to your needs, what you do need for a home, what you do need to feel comfortable. The universe is going to allow for you to get that. But I would kind of see maybe this next year as an exploration and a trial and an error, so you don't beat yourself up too much, because that's going to be the challenge with this Saturn on the IC. It's opposite to the midheaven. It's like, let's go, let's get this job together. Let's just get this checked off, check. And it's going to be about balancing what's going on the inside with what's going on the outside, listening to your emotional needs, so that way you can show up in your job. And it's just going to really bring up this reparenting process. And that's, again, why the whole mom home thing, maybe that is an opportunity to consciously go through this reparenting process, which could be very deeply empowering. But I hear you. Honestly, when Saturn transits the moon or the IC, I actually tell people it's okay to be depressed. Just like how we spoke to Sarah about, the prescription of pharmaceuticals to cover up these soul barfs, so then we end up losing our soul. Saturn on the IC is about doing this deeper healing through the emotional processing. That's where you're going to grow. That's where you're going to mature. And then a few years from now, this stuff's going to seem small.
Well, that was what I was going to ask, is that it's like, I'll bite the bullet and go through it if that's like what the circumstance is, and I have to feel depressed. But I need to see a light at the end of the tunnel and make sure that I'm not going to, I don't want to be depressed for the rest of my life. I'll go through it, but That's what this Saturn on the IC is. It's like you're giving yourself that light at the end of the tunnel every day. And that's what the reparenting process is. You're doing a great job. Good for you. Pats on the back, one step at a time. You accomplished this. So now take a little breather, give your inner child a little, break, whatever it may be. That's going to be where this maturing process is honestly going to give you a new structure for self-support. That's what you're working on with this Saturn transit. So you can know that's what you're working on. That is the ultimate light at the end of the tunnel, because once you have that, there's no more going back. You can get through this, and it's not going to be forever, but it doesn't have to be something that you are, waking up with a grin on your face every day either. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Really appreciate your vulnerability. That in and of itself is healing, because we're all humans and we all go through these periods. We're here to help and support in any way we can too. That can be part of the Saturn in Aquarius too. Continue to use the community however is useful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. All right. Again, I'm continuing down the line. Those who need to be spoken to, you can hit reactions at the bottom of the window and there raise your hand. All right, Arsely, good to have you again. How are you doing?
Hello, sorry about that. How are you?
Good to hear from you. What's going on?
So, oh, do you have my information? Okay, cool. So let's see. Okay, let me know about if I don't make sense or if I'm going on for too long. I know there's like more people ahead of me. Okay, so I was in a 10-year relationship, and the last year of that relationship, I got married to him, and I divorced him. And the main reason, just, really like quickly, was because I was very codependent, and ultimately, like, I did not love myself. So going through the divorce was like the first step to my self-love journey, right? And so it's been what, like 3 years since the divorce. And so I've been working on on self-love, right? And but I guess especially these last 8 months, I really went through this like dark phase where the main theme was, like, I really gotta love myself and feel worthy and accept myself. And in that relationship, in my marriage, I took on, I sort of lost myself in him. Like, I became him, like I suppressed who I was over time, and ultimately I became him, and like I just lost who I was. And so now that I feel that this last 8 months, of that dark phase just got completed, and I learned that maybe I went deep, everything came from my father wound and that masculine wound. I grew up wanting to get my dad's validation, his love, his attention. I was the youngest of 6 siblings. And all my 3 older brothers and 2 older sisters, they were troublemakers, and they always got the attention. And so I was the youngest, and I just I was just put in the background, and so I just grew up wanting my dad's attention, his love. I would do anything to gain his attention, or just behave, and do the right things. So that I know that spilled over into my relationship, into that 10-year relationship. So now I'm for the first time, I'm really feeling I feel a much deeper sense of love for myself. But I know that this I'm aware of this father masculine wound, right? And I know that I'm in a better place in that sense, but I know it's a continuous healing process. And then now I feel that I feel that this next phase, I'm right at the beginning of this phase where I'm just starting to get a taste of learning how to embody my feminine, but it's so new to me. It's just this transition, so new to me, because all my life it was all about, I don't feel good enough. I don't feel, I would judge myself, and that's why for the most part I was always very quiet and introverted. I didn't want to show who I was, because the times that I would, it would be pushed down by my dad, my older brothers. So every time I try to be myself, I criticize myself, what's wrong with me, blah blah blah. But now I'm able to, I just started to those thoughts come in, but then I'm just starting to be no, it's fine, this is who I am. I love me, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm starting to switch that thinking. Sorry for like talking so much, but I guess overall, I guess based on my chart, I know, I just know a little bit about like Venus being in Gemini, how like we can take on other people's values and how we're like very diverse. And I guess I saw your video on the Black Moon Lilith and like where we're at. And I guess at the individual level, like for myself, like I guess any advice moving forward so that when I relate to the masculine, I don't go backwards, I just continue to heal and like change my relationship with the masculine, whether it's in a relationship or with friends or with coworkers. And then how to start, like, I guess what's going to help me embody my feminine, based on my chart. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
For sure. So there's a few things I'm going to point out. First and foremost, what we'll do is we'll just zoom in on this new moon here as an example for what you just shared. So the new moon's at 7 degrees Cancer right here. It will be right on your Chiron and Mars and Cancer in the 12th house. And we can see this Chiron in Cancer squares her natal moon. It's also opposite to Saturn. So this here is the father wound. This is Saturn in Cap, opposite to Chiron in Cancer. Grow up, toughen up. It's a dog eat dog, fight to survive world. You've got to produce this much in order to be successful. And then Chiron in Cancer does not have the emotional support to really feel safe in your childhood environment. This is really highlighted by the square to the moon, as well as Pluto being in the 4th house. Most common experience, Pluto in the 4th house, born into families that are emotionally unstable or where there is emotional immaturity. Oftentimes, Pluto 4th house souls are the mothers of their own mothers. They're the caretakers of the family. They hold space for the emotional disturbances, but through the inaccurate mirroring from parents and others, there is a lack of recognition of yourself. What you do provide, what you do, how you care, as well as your capabilities. Because again, the Saturn father wound is it's never good enough. It's never perfect enough. Oh, well, you check this off. Well, there's another thing to check off, and it's just, honestly, it's bullshit. It's an abusive signature. It's not real. It's not you. So Pluto polarity point in the 10th house, Pluto 4th house souls have to recognize themselves and give themselves permission to do what they want to do and to prove their capabilities to themselves or the world, So it's not necessarily about getting the parents' understanding or approval. I get that. I have the same signature in my chart. I've never once done any astrology for my family in my 10 years of being an astrologer. So self-recognition is important here. Now, this new moon right on your Chiron is really going to bring up all of these themes, the emotions, the sensitivities, and it is a time to really be the parent to your inner child, to give yourself those pats on the back, to say, I'm proud of you for the things that you've done, where you show up in the world. This is a very charitable, mother of the collective, mother of everybody type of signature, And this is where you're a warrior, a fighter, a protector, It's vitally important that you give to yourself what you're always giving to others. That care, that support, that slowness and safety to go in and digest what you are feeling. So to be in connection with your own internal compass. Those feelings are letting you know what you need, what you want, what you desire, where you feel safe to be yourself. So what I would say is this new moon in a few days, do something to commemorate yourself. Do a ritual. Sow a seed intention to honor your own sensitivity, your own flow, because I think this can be a deeply creative next month, but it's really going to bring you into these deep feelings. And those feelings are there to be explored, to know your story, but also to give yourself this clear and accurate self-reflection. Again, this is a reparenting process. So it's doing what your parents did not do in the past, providing your inner child what was not provided, or giving yourself that recognition that was not validated for yourself. This is a major healing opportunity with the new moon here on this Chiron.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that helps a lot. I think, yeah, I know that there's a thing where, like, you know, people say you can't love others if you don't love yourself. And I never really understood that, because I always felt so like I cared so much about, like, I didn't mind putting in the time for others and listening and being there for them, for my family. But for some reason, I just couldn't do that with myself, you know, and like, so I never related to the, you know, when people say that, because for myself, I was like, yeah, I just couldn't do it for myself. And I admitted it was just very hard. But yeah, I need to really like learn and learn how to reparent myself and like just give myself that love and acceptance and like, you know, everything that I needed as a child, but to myself. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Good, I'm glad. And I can see how as your life unfolds, it's going to come out of this kind of survival orientation that was largely like needing to be understood by others and please and take care of others. Otherwise, there was squabbling and projection and disagreement. It's like you're coming out of this survival orientation, and it's going to get a lot easier, especially as you give yourself the boundaries that you need, the space and time that you need to pull yourself out of other people's fields. Because you go in very deeply, you're very caring. And that's where you have all these healing gifts, all these healing skill sets. But first, to recognize those gifts and skill sets, you have to have the time out of the frying pan, the space to breathe. And that's where I think things are going to get a lot easier for you, is there's going to be a lot of gifts that you can actualize without it having to be an uphill battle or, you know, having to fight to be understood. Those aren't going to be the people you end up spending a lot of time with.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much, Timothy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always great to hear from you, Arcely. Thanks so much for showing up and sharing. Okay, I'm actually going to grab a drink real quick. I'll be back in 10 seconds. Thanks for hanging tight. Okay. Moon's in Gemini, Mercury's in Gemini, but I still need a little more espresso. Burr Tiffany, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic, and would you like to look at a birth chart today?
Yes. Do you have my birth chart?
I will need to grab your info real quick. If you could share your date, time, and place.
February 8th, 1993, and my birth time is 6:36 a.m.
6:36 a.m. and you said February 8th, 93?
Yes.
Sweet. And where?
Oh, Columbus, Georgia.
Gotcha. And what's your question?
Well, it's been great listening to everybody. And I feel like I'm coming out of my own psychosis stage, or maybe I'm entering into a new one, because I have Uranus opposite midheaven right now. And I think Uranus is also like squaring my sun right now as well. And a lot of things have been changing up in my life and at work, and like trying to create my business and like moving forward. And I think I'm just trying to understand like where I'm at in my headspace and like how I relate to the world. And coming out of this, like, I don't know, I was like in a really big mode of fear for like a really long time. And like I was afraid to like talk to people, to like express myself. And that's like the biggest, my big stuck point right now is like, how do I stop holding back from like fully expressing myself? And I was wondering if you can get some advice on that. I think that's my biggest thing right now.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
North node right on the 4th house. This is going to be very much about vulnerability, seeking the support to go in, emotionally process and share what's going on the inside. That's even going to take priority over the job and what's going on the outside. Interesting how we're seeing this as a repeated theme with this Cancer new moon. Y'all just wait till we have the Capricorn full moon in about a couple weeks. Boy, that one always brings up the dichotomy between work, how we're feeling, family, society, pressures every single year. So
yeah,
I'm sure this dichotomy will come up for yourself. And just to make things really direct, this new moon is going to be right on your Mars retrograde in Cancer. So this new moon is the opportunity to sow a seed intention, to have the necessary space and time to emotionally reflect and digest what it is you even want to do.
Yeah.
Mars retrograde in Cancer requires the support, safety, slowness to emotionally digest and discover from the inside what excites you and what you want to do.
Yeah.
So what you don't want to do, Pluto in the 10th house, is just be like a gerbil running in the wheel. You know, just I'll keep active, I'll do this, that, the other thing. You know, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable and I'm not sure why, so I'll just task manage. If you're not sure what you're feeling, sit down and feel it. Allow yourself to even spin those wheels, try things out, but really allow for that time to be in touch with what you're feeling, because that could lead to a reprioritization or how you're directing your energy. And right now, the universe just wants you to be so in touch with what's going on the inside. This can be a journey of self-discovery. It's like you want to Marie Kondo all these different possibilities. And what really gives you that spark from the inside, that's your green light. And what bosses, authorities, dad, outer world pressures, you got to take that a little bit with a grain of salt, so not to just repeat that gerbil wheel that's going to just get you stuck in these endless repetitions and pressures. And then like, what is it that you actually want to do? What's actually most important is going to come out of this journey of self-discovery.
I really feel that, like, because I work in a warehouse, so it's like it's constantly about productivity, staying active, and like even when I'm at home, I'm always like I should be doing something instead of just sitting here, but it's like no, I need to rest. But yeah, like really finding out, like I've been like getting back into my writing as well and back into art, and like I've been having this new romance in my life as well. And it's kind of all like, it's like all this new stuff is happening. I just like adjusting to it. But certainly like just sitting with it, getting back into my meditation practice is really important for me. I just haven't done that like I should have recently. But I feel like now my headspace is clearing up enough to actually get there. Yeah.
Well, don't accidentally make meditation into the next thing you're beating yourself up for not doing. You know, meditation is perfect. That's exactly, you know, this Zen style of living is absolutely what it's about, but it's not having to do anything. It's easy. you're going through your Saturn return now too. That's going to be completing at the end of this year, summer through fall time particular. So there can be a lot of change ups. And if that, warehouse job is just becoming too much of like just being a cog or a machine, uh, that might be giving you a little bit of a push into something new or different as well. And again, the way you're going to know that is through the emotional feeling, because your inner child's going to be kicking and screaming and dragging your heels to go into work. And that's going to be the thing to really listen to and honor, because there's going to be other opportunities. You do not need to do unfulfilling work. That's pretty distinctly written in your chart. And this would be a time where such themes could potentially come up.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm starting my business off making teas and my astrology stuff, and I want to open up my own shop. So I know I can't. It's like I'm looking down the road. I'm seeing like me either stay in this job for 10, 20 years, like some people I work with, and like just being unhappy, or just quitting my job and just going forward or whatever. But I'm not ready to take the total leap yet, I guess. I'm saving up for that for sure. Because I don't know, I feel so strongly about this dude I've been talking to. It's crazy, but he was like, when you open your tea shop up, I'm gonna be there writing my music there as well. So that's really like my new, like, okay, I want to do this. So yeah.
Yeah,
I really,
you can.
Yeah, I
You can do something quite different for your job. Saturn and Aquarius in the first house, opposite to Chiron and Leo. What you got to do is it's got to be a little bit special. It's got to be you,
Yeah.
And the universe is going to ultimately support you in this, because you've already done the chores and been involved in the world. So that's comfortable, that's familiar, but your soul may also be a little bit sick of it. And you've really got a lot of things to share. Jupiter and Libra ruling the North Node. It's about collaboration, creativity, connecting, whatever your inner child wants to bring into school for show and tell. That's going to hold open the doorway to your soul's evolution. And right now, it's really just about having that meditation tea time with the inner child, even if you don't have it all figured out right now. I don't think you would have it figured out right now. I think it can really be coming together towards the end of this year into next year, though. So give yourself that time to just experiment and explore, again, Marie Kondo, and see what's most exciting from the inside out.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Bert, Tiffany. Great to hear from you. Thanks for joining us again. Okay, Annie, you've been very patient. Good to hear from you. How are you, Annie?
I'm fine, thank you. I wanted to say thank you so much for the Lilith. I had no idea about Lilith, and I'd like you to talk about Lilith in your chart. But also thank you for the Neptune video in the Astro School. I just felt seen, recognized, understood.
I'm so glad.
Does that make sense to you? I just felt like at last somebody knows who I am. Yeah.
So glad.
Anyway, in my chart, have you got my details or not? Do I have to send them every time?
Yes, and that's no problem. Just shoot it to me really quickly right now, if you don't mind.
1st of March, 1952.
And the time?
5 a.m.
Okay.
And the town is Dingwall, Dingwall, Scotland.
Perfect. All right, and I'll pull up your chart. What's going on, Annie?
Things have shifted a little bit for me. I've got a couple of jobs coming up further away from here, still in France, but it's the sort of thing that I'm good at and I like to do. It's looking after, staying in somebody's house, looking after their animals for them while they are away. And I love doing that. So that's a good thing. And I'm hoping to try and increase that kind of activity over the next little while. Not only to help my income level, but also to give me a little bit of freedom. going to places that I know and other places that I don't know, which I really enjoy. We traveled a lot when I was a child and a teenager as a family. And then there's the other thing, which I had no idea about Lilith and where she is in my chart and what it means for me. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Okay, well, let me start first of all, what's going on, which is we see Saturn's transiting your north node in the second house, connecting with animals, north node in Pisces, returning to nature, traveling. Saturn in the second house is also going to be the time to figure out money and financial situation. So look at that. It's all coming together. Saturn on the north node is the time to step up and do that work. It may not all fall together overnight, but this is certainly what's coming together, and you can really build this new job that's going to bring you into this realm your soul wants to go, the garden, animals, comfort, beauty, stability. So absolutely, this is the time. And I think, again, it can really come together. Saturn on the north node is the time to really see your evolutionary intention come together with that outward structure type of way. Now, you mentioned Black Moon Lilith, so can look at both the mean. The way I look at Black Moon Lilith is I look at both the mean and the true positions. Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're in different signs. You have them both in Cancer. Okay, so this is going to be, like I was mentioning, the new moon is joined with Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. Black Moon Lilith in Cancer is going to be someone who is highly sensitive, empathic, and maternal, and may have been conditioned to suppress that early on in life. Could hear things earlier in life like, you're a baby. Grow up, stop being so sensitive, when in fact that sensitivity is a superpower. It's a gift of empathy. It is a capacity to very deeply feel into others and then reflect back their needs. Chiron in the seventh house is like a natural counselor, just being able to mirror and reflect back others. That's also a bit of having this Uranus in the seventh house. It's being able to access from a higher vantage point and reflect back others. It's a natural counseling skill set here. This new moon on Uranus here, it's an opportunity to recognize this, how you're bringing revolutionary means of safety and support into the world. Uranus in Cancer can also be having support or emotional safe space in radical or different ways. It could be someone who has their family, for example, in a different way than is traditional or normal. So to have a deeper sense of family and emotional support and connection. So this is a really cool new moon on that Uranus, because it's a time to experiment with how you're sharing, connecting, and honoring these sensitivities. And again, while Saturn's transiting your north node, I think it really is a time that you can find your footing in what's bringing this satisfaction, fulfillment, connection to nature. Animals, again, can be a big part of Pisces in the second house. Is there anything else I can add to that, Annie? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I'm glad to think that I'm at last beginning to feel like I can move forward a bit with things. I'm very happy to live where I live. I like the fact that, like you, I'm close to nature and it's quiet and there isn't too much stuff going on all around all the time. And at the same time, I think I've said to you before, I also feel the need to be out there in the world doing something that's useful and of service, and preferably connected with animals and nature, because that's where my heart has always been. So it's great. It's really good. Good to hear that I'm on the right track at last and can go ahead with that. So thank you.
Yep. Saturn's on your north node. North node's transiting your moon too. So it's the time to form this environment that is really honoring your body's sensual somatic needs. Peace, stability, nature, comfort. You got it. that's the time to really bring it in and build it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
For sure. Good to hear from you, Annie. All right, Dale. Thanks for joining us, Dale. Good to hear from you as always. What's going on?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's funny, initially for days I've been thinking that I wanted to bring in a question that was more about the collective for this Q&A, because I couldn't recall us really talking about like the US's Pluto return. But then when I watched the Lilith video, I felt like there were so many things in that maybe even answer what might be broached in a discussion like that. So I don't know if there's anything to say there.
The one thing I'll say is, I guess it's like a factoid that your average civilization lasts for about 2.5 centuries, which is a Pluto orbit.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever any civilization or nation has a Pluto return, it's a time of really looking at its karma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's pretty obvious here in the United States is that we're not aligned with the intentions that the United States was born with.
Mm-hmm. The ideals.
Seeing that.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like what you said about 2 steps, what is the expression? 1 step forward, 2 steps back, is kind of like maybe where we are collectively. Like, this is this great opportunity to really look at what doesn't work on a bigger picture that was never working, but we thought was strong enough, and to try to address those things. Does that feel right to you, or?
Yes, and I do think that it is always this way. I recognize the frustration coming from the collective. I hear a lot of people, we need to take a stand. We need to get on our soapbox. We need to wake everybody up. And it's like, yes, and how? We have to be smart about this.
Right.
Because I think there's always going to be people on the planet dedicated to moving backwards, and there's always going to be people on the planet dedicated to moving forwards. So it's not about us wasting our breath by getting up on the soapbox. It's about what are we doing, aligning with those that are actually productive.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are always going to be moving in the opposite direction, they're always going to be there to give us that challenge. And that's what we're working with. How do we deal with that challenge? But I don't think it's going to be a political debate, which is unfortunately what it oftentimes gets turned into.
Mm-hmm. That's really helpful. Thank you. If you still have time, the second thing that occurred, well, I had thought that was what I was most interested in. Not that I'm not, but I just noticed through the Q&A today, there's a recurring theme again of like the placement I have, which is the Neptune on the South Node. That's one of the themes that keeps coming up. And I am really at the nodal return. Like, I think if I'm calculating it correctly, it's July 26. I didn't put you have my chart. Thank you. So I'm wondering, between the new moon and then the fact that you mentioned this Capricorn full moon, and I have the moon in Capricorn, I guess you would say it's a critical degree. I don't know, 1 degree. Any words of wisdom?
Well, I can tell you that all of our Neptunian souls are going to be challenged now because of the distress of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the challenge with the nodal return, is it's easy to get sucked in to that darkness, that disappointment, to leveling yourself, because it's so sad. We have to, just make this the sole purpose of our entire life, and then getting dragged into that mission complex. And it's going to be, again, like I've spoke to some others, just bearing in mind that this is the human experience, this is the process of evolution. Is it ultimately a failure, like we've lost some war? I don't think it is. I think this is going to catalyze a reaction that's even more healthy and even more progressive than where we are before. And that's just how we evolve as a species. For very productive and pioneering souls like ourselves, it's always frustrating because it's not moving as fast as we would like it. And that's where I would say this North Node, nodal return, is see that you are this pioneer and pull yourself into your scientist laboratory to work on your experiments, because that's where you're going to actualize your gifts. And it is a bit of practicing, kind of. It's going to feel like ignoring what's going on out there in the world because you're so sensitive to it, but it's actually pulling these psychic tentacles in so you're not being exhausted, you know, with stuff that ultimately there's no reason to waste your energy. So that's where this nodal return is really bringing you in. And it's like we've said with the North Node on the 4th house, it's being the mother to your own inner child. It's this reparenting. It's really listening and Marie Kondoing what's most fulfilling to you at this particular time. But it's like you want to get your hands into something. North Node's going to transit your 3rd house for this next year and a half too. You know, there's skills, there's things to talk about, there's things to share, there's people to learn from. It's going to move you in the direction of a bit more multifaceted. Like, what are all these different things that you want to be doing? And again, kind of coming out of that singular mission complex focus, because you've got more than one thing that you can be doing. And that's also going to allow you to discover the things that you need to stay, you know, your own flotation device, those things that are keeping your inner child content.
Yes.
And that is like going to give you a whole new suit of armor. And then you can also go and do the really deep diving, digging up, passionate, societal catalyzing stuff too. But right now it's like really the inner child contentment is going to give you that extra suit of armor to not get swept off your feet with all the emotions and intensity that truly is felt at this time. Anything else I can add to that?
No, I think that's very helpful. And I've listened to you a lot in the past few months about these themes, and I have sort of, I think, on a soul and psychological level, been working towards my willingness to let go of the things that in my life that fall into that mission category, to kind of actualize the things that are more personal to me. And I have a sense of what those things are, and we'll see, you know. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you have that sense, that's perfect, because you know exactly what to lean into.
Exactly.
And that's actually where the evolutionary work is. Again, you're one of those souls that I have to say throughout your life, it's a practice of being selfish. And there are these very deep spiritual lessons that will come out of that, that you're not throwing the baby out in any way, shape, or form through this necessary self-preservation. And during the nodal return, it's absolutely the time to stay single pointed on that, especially with Pluto also being in the 8th house. You know, I think there's going to be ways to bring these worlds together in the long run.
I do believe it. So thank you, Timothy.
You bet. Always great to hear from you. Thanks so much for sharing, Dale.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the questions about the collective too, because yeah, it's amazing what's going on out there right now.
It's a lot.
Yep. My pleasure.
Okay.
And yeah, it's amazing. So, you know, everyone starts to talk about good and evil, and it goes quite deep. All right. Alyssa, I'll ask you to unmute your mic, and if you'd like to look at your chart today, if you don't mind sharing your info. How are you, Alyssa?
I'm really good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well besides the splinter. Would you like to look at your birth chart?
Yeah. So August 23rd, 1983 and 1:26 a.m. El Paso, Texas.
It was August 23rd,
Yep.
83.
Yep.
And the time again?
1:26 a.m.
Okay. And the place?
El Paso, Texas.
Got it. Okay. And what's going on, Alyssa?
Okay, so I'm wondering if you could kind of speak to maybe some transits that are happening right now. I've been really feeling my Chiron lately, feeling a little bit ungrounded. It's kind of funny, like it's just this catch-22. Like I'm having really amazing experiences and meeting really amazing people, but it's also I'm feeling really exposed as to like what I don't know and where I'm lacking, and it's almost like it's throwing me off. Like I kind of tend to seek people out whose knowledge or wisdom or experience is attractive to me and kind of grasp at it like from them rather than like go and develop that within myself. So that's kind of what I've been feeling really strongly. But yeah, I'm just interested in knowing anything significant that you see in like transits, anything that might help me kind of ground into myself and what my purpose is and what I really need to be focusing on. Because like I said, I get around a lot of people that have these amazing things, and then I start to kind of insignify myself, where like everybody feels bigger than me, and I'm trying to kind of reground from that.
And lo and behold, another Neptune South Node conjunction. So this again brings up everything to do with boundaries, the need to create boundaries, so to discern what is yours from theirs. Now with Mercury square the moon's nodes, ruling the north nodes, square to Neptune, this can be the challenge. Hey, which voice is mine? This can create psychic entropy. It's like hearing other people's voices in your own head. And this Neptune South Node ruled by Jupiter in the 6th, it's like you're not seeing yourself accurately. You're seeing yourself smaller than you actually are through this natural compassion and what can be a very idealistic perspective of others. You see, it's interesting with Neptune. It's never either or. Usually it's like, yeah, you have a direct perception of the spiritual world and the heart of others. And that's true. And there's also a lot more going on. Yeah. There is their childhood, their unconscious dynamics, their ulterior motivations, the shadow that is harder to see than the light. These are going to be a lot of the learning lessons. The South Node, Neptune in the 7th house of relationships, North Node's in the 1st house. Again, this may bring you in a direction of necessary separations at time to recognize that you're getting pulled into somebody else's world or ideology. And there is, again, this learning through discerning your voice, your interests, your curiosities. Those things are all going to lead you back into yourself. So it's another case. North Node ruler in the 4th house. It's like Marie Kondoing. Does it feel good? Does it hold a spark? You're listening to your inner child. Does she feel heard? Does she feel seen? Is she actually being respected? Is this a respectful dynamic, or does she feel like there's something off? Because what this signature is it's like when you feel something's off, you blame yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have prayed more last night, and then this would have never happened. And it's like, no, you're not in charge of the whole freaking universe like that. And it's not your fault, you know? So again, this is going to be very liberating to discern what's yours and what's theirs, and to not carry it all or blame yourself. And that's going to bring in a necessary space and time. And there's so much wisdom through partitioning, breaking apart, chunking. I'm available for on these times, on these days. Sorry, you called me at a time I'm unavailable. You'll have to leave a message because it's me time right now.
Yeah.
You're just taking some time to have off of what you would normally otherwise be doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just taking that me time to even discover what it is that you're interested in doing. Just to have the necessary space and time where you're not getting overly wrapped up in the service or the contribution, because you're a natural. You're a very giving, big-hearted person, and you see the best in other people. And that's why you're really needed in the places where you're respected. So there's so much of learning self-respect. Saturn is transiting your moon right now, which is a bit of a heavier transit. It's about emotional digestion. It's again, reparenting, theme of the day. Recognizing the value of what you're doing, what you're contributing, taking the necessary time to feel into the deeper underlying story, which may have emotions connected to unmet needs. This moon in Aquarius wants community, wants connection. Your North Node in Gemini has things to share and talk about that can actually be understood. Not just like, okay, like I show up and serve other people, but when I really start to share about my inner truth, other people are like, wow, that's wacky. You know, it's like you're learning what that is that you're seated upon, that's valuable, that's healing. There's going to be technique, there's going to be language, there's going to be process, procedure, systems that makes it real, that makes it valid. But you have to have the necessary freedom, space, and time to explore and discover how to make that really work. And that's going to bring together your inner child, what feels really exciting to you, and it's helping other people at the same time. Okay. So what's the key with your Chiron? You mentioned this Chiron here. Well, it's a projection coming from the past, that you're misunderstood, so there's something wrong with you, or learning disorders, or, you know, being in your own world. No, you're actually extremely intelligent. And there's a healing vibration that comes through sharing your ideas, your words, and your mind. And so you need to have the space and time to really honor those parts of yourself, because you are quite brilliant and genius there, but you're not here to be understood by everybody. You're going to be connecting with the right people that are interested in the same things that you are. So that's where you're going to be doing this connecting of the dots. To discover where there are these skill sets as a teacher, as a communicator, because you do have things to share and to say. And what's the important bottom line is that you simply have the necessary freedom to discover what is most interesting and exciting for you.
Okay. Yeah, that all resonates
Got it?
really deeply. Yeah, that resonates really deep. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm so happy to hear that. And thank you for showing up and sharing so elegantly and articulately. Very much appreciated, Alyssa. For sure. All right. Jane Coleman XO. Would you like to look at a birth chart today? Are you there?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry, this keeps disconnecting. So if I just turn it off, it's just gonna turn off.
No worries. There you are. Would you like to look at your chart?
Yes, please.
All right. Can I get your info?
It's the 6th of April, 98 at 10:10 a.m. in Dublin, Ireland.
Perfect. And what's going on?
Well, like I feel like the fact that this keeps turning off at the moment is like a kind of a reflection of what's going on in my life. So I am diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I have been in and out of hospital 5 times with psychotic episodes since I was 18. And I just finished my Jupiter return there in March, and I had like my last episode there at the start of February on the Aquarius new moon, and it was like very big experience. And at the moment, I'm medicated at the moment as well, so I'm on antipsychotics, and my jaw is actually locked up, and I need to go to I'm like booked in with a jaw specialist to unlock my jaw soon. And basically it's all like a deep reflection of like, I live in a family where I'm completely not allowed to feel my emotions. So then it all builds up and I have a manic episode and go psychotic and end up in hospital, and then I get medicated, and it's like I come off the medication and really look after myself and stuff, but end up in the situation again because I'm not like cared for or something in an appropriate way. Does that make sense? And it's kind of reflected in my friendships as well, like they don't understand it and everything like that. But it feels kind of like it's coming, like it's like the end of this cycle now, but I'm in a, like I've accepted that I need to take the medication for now too, because of the situation that I live in. And I'm basically looking for a sense of direction in my chart with the transits at the moment.
Appreciate your vulnerability in bringing this up. And it is a distinct signature here with Pluto square the moon's nodes. When Pluto squares the moon's nodes, it creates a very intense reverberation between the nodes, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I have this in my chart as well. South node in Pisces, ruled by Neptune in Aquarius in the 8th house, is going to be a very unique and sensitive consciousness that you're bringing into this life. And she is correct in mentioning the lack of, really safe feeling environment. Absolutely, this can be the root of it. If we don't have the healthy mirroring to be seen for who we actually are we going to be understood? Are we going to be able to honor our nature? No. So of course, there's this bottling and suppression via that lack of safety and support. And that absolutely can be at the root of this psychosis. Now, there's going to be a very sensitive nervous system, and that's going to be a part of your exploration. Again, it's going to be a very unique wiring that you're bringing into this life. But the bottom line is going to be the safe and supportive space to really get into your body, your nervous system. And that's going to be very liberating. I could see you being someone who can really be showing the world what these actual conditions and dynamics are in a world that's very overly simplistic, Now, when it comes to medication, I'm glad you brought this up because this is such a complex issue, and I get very deeply frustrated at how overly simplistic or even moralizing, where people are like, drugs are bad, no one should use drugs. Well, that's so easy to say when you're not struggling with an actual, medical condition. So absolutely, antipsychotics can be hugely relieving, helpful, useful, especially because you have awareness that you're not in an environment that's suitable. So of course, you're doing the best that you can to get through this temporary period. And at a later time, can you reevaluate the medication when you have those missing needs met? Absolutely. In fact, this is the case for nearly anybody who's medicated. And you do have this type of chart where I can really see you making some brilliant discoveries.
Sorry, you've broken up there now.
No problem. I'll repeat, I can really see you on your
Hold on
journey.
1 second. I think it's coming back.
You might want to turn off your video. That can help with the connection. Am I coming through? Can you hear me? Nope, she gone. with the North Node Virgo ruled by Mercury retrograde, you know, she's really going to be on a very unique journey. It's going to lead her, I think, in a very pioneering type of direction. So the signature
I can
of
hear you now.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it might go again. If it goes again, I'll just leave it. Okay.
No problem. I just shut off
don't wanna-
because that can help with the connection. All I'm saying here
Oh,
is
okay, cool.
this can really lead you in a direction of, you know, really discovering a unique nervous system with unique solutions that can be incredibly liberating. It's like your lifetime is you're this very sensitive psychic being, and you're just adjusting your antenna this way, that way, this way, that way. You're running all these experiments. You're taking the results. It's all trial and error. You want to make lots of mistakes. It's never failure. It's feedback. It's like fire and arrow miss, fire and arrow miss, fire and arrow miss. But every single test, you're gathering more information. And through this reductionist trial and error process, you're going to have some arrows that strike that target. And it's going to lead to some amazing breakthroughs. But again, it's just like bending the antenna this way, that way, this way, that way, until you get that clean picture. And once that clean picture comes forward, that's the next baby step. And then step by step, you're coming online, you're funneling your consciousness into your body. And I can really see you making some amazing discoveries that can be very inspiring, invigorating, giving other unique souls the confidence to be themselves and to go to the beat of their own drum. Those are kind of some of the vaster evolutionary themes I see in your chart. And again, I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing, because you are one of these unique souls that has this type of hypersensitivity. And a hypersensitivity early in our life, it really does seem like a curse. It's like, oh my God, all these people are functioning so well. But it's just like deaf people that can function well in the middle of a construction site. Once you get the environment that's suitable for your body and nervous system, there's going to be amazing gifts being brought to you through those sensitivities.
Okay.
All right. I hope that came through. And if
perfect,
not,
yeah.
you know, we'll have the recording you can listen back to as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. A real pleasure hearing from you. So thanks again for sharing. All right. And again, for those who want to go next, you can raise your hand, put your hand down. We go with the flow in these Q&As, and that's just great. Appreciate that. Calum, Vanessa, we'll get to you. And Sigrun, how are you doing, Sigrun? Good to see you again.
Hi, Timothy. Hi, everybody. I just want to add one thing about I don't remember who it was, who we were talking to, but anyway, I just want to say with the hypersensitivity, like I grew up with a lot of noise around me and I became hypersensitive. And now today, I prefer I go into my deepest meditations where there are a lot of people, a lot of noise. I sit down on a bench at a busy place or at the pool, and I get to my deepest meditations in the eye of the storm somehow. So it's like how you can utilize what you're used to in a way. It's easier for me to find the peace under the chaos than go into a peaceful environment and get peaceful. But it's interesting. Okay, thank you. Yes, Timothy, there's lots going on in my chart. You're welcome. Yeah, there's lots going on. I was going to ask really, because I am realizing this Aquarius energy. I'm integrating it really, that I have. My Pluto's in the 11th house, and now I'm going through my Uranus opposition. And so I can really feel this energy, what it is, this objectivity, this bird's eye view, and really discernment, going over the matter, like, is this still useful? Maybe this needs a new review, and going over your values again and again, and like, is this where you want to go? Is this where you want to be? And So I was thinking, sko, because I'm approaching my purpose somehow, at least my first step, which is, I think, making a module about connecting to the inner child through this kind of objectivity of the Aquarius, where you play a game. You play a game with your inner child to pinpoint these things you need to work on, and you make it all into a sort of adventure. I'm not there yet, but what I want to ask really is a really quite open question. So is this, since I am this Aquarius, I have my Pluto in the 11th house, it was easy for me to retrieve this. I didn't know I had this energy, but now I'm like integrating it, and I'm really good at this, obviously. This Aquarius energy, this review, and cutting things out of my life that don't work anymore. And I'm asking, I mean, everybody are able to learn this, right? I mean, it's not just because I am this Aquarius soul that I can do this. I mean, maybe more easily than many others, but everybody has these archetypes within themselves. So I should be able to teach this kind of objectivity in like a system or a game. What do you think, Timothy?
Oh, for sure. You're hitting the nail exactly right on the head. And it's a good example because, folks, any archetypal aligning with the themes of the North Node is hitting the nail on the head. So she's saying, I want to bring healing awareness out into the world, North Node and Virgo on the midheaven, by introducing a playful game, an exploration, Leo in the 9th house. So totally, you're built for this, you're made for this. It can really, really work. And she's got her Pluto in the 11th. So she's saying, hey, I bring this objectivity, absolutely, that also wants to come into creative play and expression, which is doing your polarity point in the 5th house. So you're going very much in the direction of Leo, which is self-expression, spontaneity, play, and self-discovery. But all of that is still doing the North Node Virgo intentions. She also mentioned this reductionist. This is really mine. This is what I want to do, you know, and this is doing the North Node Virgo, the necessary boundaries to bring focus to the parts that are most exciting. And then again, that can be the teaching, that can be the healing service. Saturn on the North Node Virgo wants it to really work. All this stellium, Leo in the 9th house can be very explorative, playful, and fun. This is absolutely working with the inner child. It's bringing in the costumes, the role play, the colored pencils, and then all of this ends up being jet fuel for the healing that's going on simultaneously.
So thank you, Timothy. Thank you so much. I noticed watching the other people that are going through rehabilitation, such as myself. I'm in a group, we meet every week. We have to go over the week that just passed and the week that's coming. And I'm showing so much progress next to the other ones in the group. And I've been thinking, like looking at this objectively, like what's going on here? And I can see there are many things going on. One of them is they're not doing anything that they think is fun. None of the things they use to heal themselves are things that light them up. Nothing. So I understand why nothing's going on, nothing's getting healed. Because this was obviously intuitive from how I'm energetically wired this way. And this came out very freely out of me when I started learning astrology and realizing this is part of my purpose, is radiating this, is being playful, playing around, finding fun ways to do things, being creative. And so I realized that's the biggest difference between me and them, is that I'm having fun doing it. That's why it's not like I'm not dragging my feet and then punishing myself because I didn't do anything for days, you know. That's the big difference. So, and the inner child, they all talk negatively to themselves. So they haven't learned to connect with his inner child and take that responsibility of being their own parent. So it has to do, but the reason why I asked you is because in my mind, I was like, is this madness? You know, because I can do this, obviously. And sometimes I get like impatient with people because I think that they can do this too, that they can just step outside themselves and look at this with a bird's eye view and go like, yeah, this is just not useful anymore. I mean, come on. So let's just stop it and start something new. And I get impatient with people sometimes, but I'm teaching myself, you know, to learn that people are wired differently. But yeah, I got worried that that the way I think, the way I process, you know, that I wouldn't be able to teach this, you know, unless people had a lot of Aquarius in their chart or something, you know. Or maybe it's only for that group of people. Maybe it's only, but there's still an audience in that group of people.
No, I think you're uncovering something that is needed by and large throughout the world. And, you know, I've mentioned in my recent video the importance of the planetary north nodes, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Cancer for all souls. How to be able to listen to ourselves and know what it is that's actually fulfilling from the inside is a missing skill set, because everybody's been run into the ground with expectation, obligation, what dad wants, what boss wants, etc. So we've lost the wisdom of the inner child. Now we see in Sigrun's chart, her moon's nodes are aligned with the IC midheaven polarity, right? So reparenting has been a huge part of Sigrun's evolutionary journey. And that's where you've discovered these specific skill sets that you have to offer the world. That's a part of the North Node Virgo on the midheaven, is that you recognize these skill sets that are a part of your unique capability to be shared with the world. This new moon is going to be right on Sigrun's natal moon on the North Node of Jupiter. She's a holder of this maternal wisdom. When she mentioned this ability to dissolve into the crowd, there's this grand water trine between that moon, Mars, South Node, Pisces, Uranus, and Scorpio. When we see grand trine signatures like that, these are superpowers that are so natural and online for us, it's difficult to comprehend how others may not be able to do the same. So you can really hold a space to go into deeper, even more intense emotions and to bring care and empathy to those places. That's such a natural skill set that you do have. But I have to say, Sigrun, it's like what you've recognized about, hey, all these other people seem to have a hard time feeling excited about their healing journey. That's going to be a collective disease. And hey, you know, all these people are having a hard time listening to their own inner needs. That's the collective disease. So again, you're hitting the nail on the head with a skill set that's needed, that will provide goodness to others, and it is enjoyable, fun, and that's what actually allows for the healing to be more effective simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. I see them making these projects for themselves, and they make everything harder than it has to be. That's what I see. Like, it doesn't have to be this heavy. Why don't you just go skipping or something you like to do? Build something out of Legos, you know, do something fun. Like, why does it all have to be so serious and dramatic? These are, I know this is pain, these are feelings, but it's still pain, feelings. And it's our opinion of the feelings that adds it like times 1,000, that makes them so excruciating. It's our ideas of them, you know. Anyway, thank you so much, Timothy. It was really good to get that, and I'm all set for the new moon. I'm having a proper ceremony with my friends, new friends, and everything. It's really exciting. Thank you.
I'm so glad. And yeah, again, thanks for sharing all of that. It's not only do, you know, people I mean, it's like people have that sadness, but we're not even feeling it because it's just like what we're expected to carry. So feeling it is sad, but that's informing us of what's not working. And I think that's hugely what's missing is it's everyone's running from their own feelings of sadness. If we could actually feel that sadness, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world and it doesn't have to be all big and dramatic, that's hugely where we need to go as a species. So again, appreciate you passing those reflections back. I think we can all bear witness to these dynamics. Thanks, Sigrun. Vanessa, how are you doing? Would you like to look at a chart today?
Yes, please. Hi, I'm doing great, thanks. I had put in the chat my birth time and place, but I think I forgot my birthday.
If you don't mind just saying that out loud. Quick,
Yeah, sure,
date, time,
for sure.
place.
So I'm born on November 28th, 1988, in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I'm born at 6:07 p.m.
Sweet. And what's going on?
So first, I just want to thank everyone for sharing because I've been listening really closely and it's just been really, really fascinating. So thank you. So for me, so the pandemic, you know, it sent us all for a loop, and I ended up, I'm a creative writer, editor, director, and I had a bunch of projects canceled in 2020. And so I set about finishing a memoir I had been working on full time, and I finished it. And now my fourth draft is being read, and my manuscript was already read a year ago. And so the memoir was hugely cathartic for me to work on because on a soul level, it really allowed me to integrate into one person. I was born between two families on two different continents. I have that Venus conjunct Pluto in the 5th house in Scorpio. So while I was writing the memoir, a lot of dark family secrets leaked out, and I had to integrate the truths of that, which was very, very difficult. And in the meantime, this book is being read now, but half my family doesn't even know that I wrote it. So, you know, upon this thing getting published, it's going to cause huge uproar that is still a source of anxiety. It was almost debilitating anxiety at the beginning, but the process of writing was so gratifying and so resonant that it allowed me to stomach that fear and go very, very, very deep into that process in my psyche of weathering a lot of pain that I hadn't made space or had the time or place to integrate. So that is going well. I'm very proud of the work. In the meantime, I've realized how, you know, interested I am in the psychology of families and the trauma in families. I've become like a mini expert on that as I've read extensively on it, looked the truth in the eye, and I find I have kind of some gifts of perception in this area now, which is sometimes disturbing, but I'm becoming more comfortable with it, and seeing the very deep dysfunction that exists in our societies within the family, and that so often it is the family itself that is wounding the family members. So I'm an artist, and I find myself thinking, you know, I like to be of service as well through my stories. So I, you know, for the first time in a long time, I've thought, do I want to study? Do I want to be a, you know, a psychologist, but then still integrate this into my art and bring, like, I'm very research oriented and I like to get to the root of things. And in the meantime, you know, I also have to make a living. So I've always had these, I have the North Node in Pisces. I've read before, that means people often have two professions. So I've had the creative and then I've been doing, yoga and meditating and stuff since I'm a teenager. And so I've been teaching that as well. But now I'm about to step into the next gear of that as well. And I want to make a new offering into the world. And so I've been trying to summon myself to start this private business. But with everything going on, I've been so tired in a way. And like, I guess, maybe it's also because I'm waiting on some positive reinforcement or some feedback, and I know I'll be able to summon myself to go further, but I think I'm still a little gobsmacked by all the truths I've had to integrate and by the darkness of it all. And I'm trying to figure out how to be of service, but I'm used to being an artist, and I'm preparing to cause an uproar, and I don't know.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the distinct signature in the chart. Moon and Sagittarius square the moon's nodes.
So my moon is in Leo.
That's right. Here's your moon in Leo.
Okay, I see. Right.
So the moon's south node is in Virgo. This is
Right.
going to be the past. Ruled by Mercury and Sagittarius, square the moon's nodes.
Right, I
South
see.
node in Virgo,
Mhm.
someone who's been of service in their family, in their village, in their tribe, and has been a truth teller, Mercury and Sagittarius, but in the past you were not allowed to tell your truth. It had to be shoved under. And that could be repeated in the early childhood situation, not really being able to be heard, not being understood for your ideas or your truth. And again, in past lives, there's a theme of being shut up for being a truth teller.
Yep.
It's vitally important that you do share your ideas, that you do write this book. It can be your own story. And that's again going to be a healing taking place on the soul level, where there's these ideas and truths that you had to hide in the past, but this time around your soul wants to put it out into the world. How you do that can be creative. It can be through your art. It can be through therapy. It can be through art therapy. It can be through, like you said, doing all the above. What's most important is that you're doing what is fulfilling. It's giving you a sense of purpose by being connected to something bigger than just yourself. That's what your soul wants to align with. That's what you can share. You can get a lot of support. You can collaborate. And again, creative work is absolutely highlighted with the North Node Pisces ruled by Neptune in the 7th house. This also highlights a counseling skill set. You can really merge, dissolve into the field of others, and then reflect that field back to them. This Venus-Pluto is a very powerful healing signature. It's going to be a very powerful electromagnetic field in your interactions with others that can catalyze and transform others. This again is a creative signature. It's like showing up, sharing your art, sharing your expression can have a catalyzing effect. So you can absolutely be bridging together the inner parent, the inner child. What's personally fulfilling and exciting to you can also be doing some really good stuff in the world. Anything I can clarify or add to that?
No, that all sounds spot on, and I can, no, that's perfectly clear.
That's the other part. I just wanted to also mention that we see here Saturn's transiting your midheaven. So it absolutely is the time to be going out there in the world, stepping up, being the boss, being the CEO, flex your muscles, build it. And then Saturn will transit your North Node, where this creative or more entrepreneurial direction can really come together.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And, I like what you said before about not being worried about the single pointedness. I know I went through a phase years ago because I love to focus on things. And I thought, okay, let me choose one thing. But as much as I tried, I realized it's not actually going to work because the interests that I have are too diverse, and yet they feed each other. And I thought, why would I block myself off from that? because, you know, all these different expressions feel very valuable. So I guess I've just been also trying to figure out, and I tend, you know, when I begin things, I do tend to finish them, which brings me some calm and some confidence. But I guess it's, I don't want to spread myself too thin. And yes, I want to diversify enough so that I can do all the things that I choose to do, like maybe both the art and the counseling. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's possible, what's feasible with the limited time, with the limited energy that I have. And, you know, maybe it's just a question of being brave enough to try it all out and see then if it does actually work, all of it.
I agree. That's going to be this Mercury square the nodes integrated through that south node in the 4th house. So it's trial and error. And then Marie Kondoing. Is this yours or is it theirs? Is this your interest where your curiosity is leading you, or is it what somebody else said before?
Right.
Jupiter 1st degree Gemini retrograde. This is like a need to explore curiosity. Get your hands on lots of different things. The inner child's going to get very excited, have all this energy and enthusiasm to explore all these different things. And if it's, you know, having to hold in a particular area or time limit, you could get bored or stagnant. So yeah, again, Gemini reads several pages from every book on the shelf. Let that be your process. And then who knows, you can mix and match and bring different things together as well. It's a very creative type of direction. I could see you working with different raw ingredients to make your own recipe.
Cool. Me too.
Sweet. Sound good?
Thank you. Yeah. Can I just ask one question on Lilith, since we've been on her a bit?
Sure.
Is Lilith conjunct my south node?
Let me check mean Lilith. You know, true Lilith is a little bit of a wide orb.
Because I mean, I have Chiron
You do have a
and
Lilith signature though, because you got the asteroid conjunct Venus and asteroid Vesta and Pluto, and there is, you know, a feminine wisdom here. Creative, sexual, regenerative wisdom. But absolutely, Lilith, Vesta, Venus with Pluto. This is a signature to being connected with some of this, what might be occult, regenerative, healing wisdom, largely through magnetism or self-expression, that radiation out. There can be some real skill sets there.
Yeah, because that comes through in my work very strongly. And I think it's a bit shocking, actually. Maybe that, you know, that's also just because this kind of work will be coming out, you know, in our current society as it is now, and it's dark and it's shocking, but it's but it's resonant. And
that's Pluto and Scorpio in the 8th, or I'm sorry, Pluto, Scorpio in the 5th. I have that as well. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Because I did. Okay, good. And I have Chiron and Cancer in the 4th house, which I believe is conjunct my ascendant. And I think that a lot of the pain I had to integrate as part of that writing process, also going over the past, was a lot of that. And it's been interesting hearing so many other people with a 4th, 10th axis, because the process has kind of allowed me to be able to break away psychically from the mother figure enough to go forward. And yeah, just amazing how it's all written in there.
Very common for North Node 10th house souls. Yep, absolutely. And Chiron in Cancer tends to provide that caring maternal nature to others while being in environments where you aren't totally supportive, but that's where you're also discovering medicines for self-support through your own journey of discovering how to provide that to yourself.
Right.
And that's again where the new moon is. So that's really a thing to apply this next month. Is going to be the necessary space, time, tuning into instincts and sensitivities to honor your own healing path.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, great timing them. Thank you so much.
Sweet. Thank you. Great to hear from you, Vanessa. All right. Anyone else? Caleb, you've patiently waited to go at the very end. How are you doing, brother? I'll ask you to unmute your mic if you'd like to go ahead.
Hey, bro. Thank you. It's quite ironic that I'm last, actually, because you'll see on my birth chart. But if I could,
okay,
I give you my details. It's March the 17th, 1999, at about 2 a.m. in Redditch, England.
And you said that was 1999?
Yeah.
Great. And go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so first off, like everyone else said, like I've been listening to all of you guys and I've learned so much just from listening to your stories. Sigrid, it's nice to hear your voice again as well. And so I know you saw my post, Timothy, and a few of you might have as well, but I put a post out saying how I've recently moved or been able to create a community and find some land. So we've created this permaculture farm here. And since being here, I can feel myself, I'm going through this conscious evolution and I'm expanding at a much faster rate. I say expanding, but it's kind of the difficult word to use. And I can feel so much going on just outside of my perception of my reality. It's like there's these things in and around me that are poking me, and they're like coming through the veil, pointing me and poking me and trying to get my attention, and it's directing me to certain areas. So astrology, I've been absolutely diving deep into, and I've been rinsing through your videos, Timothy. I've been really like latched onto it because there's something to do with astrology that's guiding me towards a realization or to an understanding that's going to help break me through this veil as such, or help connect me back in. And since being here on the land, there's been some relationship issues with my partner. She's not comfortable, it doesn't feel good here. It's not what she wants. She's going on her own path. And I'm like, trying not to get caught in that emotional story as so much and just witnessing it all unfolding. But I'm wondering if that has any relation to the transits as well. So I'm feeling this draw and this call, and there's something out there, and I think I know what it is. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I don't think I'm worthy enough to do it. And I'm also wanting confirmation. It's like I'm wanting confirmation to make sure that I know that what I know is right, in a sense, that I know what I'm here to do or what my service is. And my service is in alignment to that expansion, to that realization, you know, the great remembering as such.
Okay, well, I can certainly see in your chart the relevancy of connection with astrology. You're going to bring into this life a very unique pioneering ahead of its own time perspective with this Uranus South Node conjunction in Aquarius. This to me says that you are the pioneer who's traveled in time to introduce these new possibilities, dimensions, ways of living as a species.
Sorry, Timothy, I don't know if that's actually, mine seems different unless I'm using a wrong website.
Well, let's make sure it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, 17th of March, 1999, Redditch. Yeah, interesting. I might be studying myself entirely wrong for these past month or so.
We could use a different house system as well, but generally it should be, these should be accurate houses for the most part.
Okay, yeah, no, never mind. It's just laid out differently. Moon and Sun in Pisces and Pluto, Sagittarius, 12th house. Yeah, okay. Cool. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. Now, coming into this ultimate sense of meaning and purpose is going to be very highlighted with the North Node in Leo, ruled by the Sun in Pisces. And lo and behold, this is where Neptune is transiting at this time. This is really going to bring up this search for ultimate meaning and purpose as your old identity and creative direction can be a little bit less known at this time. It is an exploration for creative purpose and meaning. And ultimately, your soul wants to align with what is going to give you that connection between individuality, your self-expression, what you're made to be, and this collective purpose and meaning. We see Calum was born just before a Pisces new moon. So there is this exploration of where you are connected to species consciousness, where you can be a channel, where you can allow your own visions, your own inspiration to lead you from the inside out. But it's going to be a very Pisces exploration. It is that feeling of fulfillment, purpose, and meaning, flow, divine inspiration that will lead you throughout this life. And it is something that you want to share with the world, with the collective. And undoubtedly, astrology can be an extremely useful tool that you're learning and using with these kinds of evolutionary intentions in your chart. Very specific signature. Uranus and Aquarius on the South Node is being a bit ahead of your own time. It's having perspectives or vantage points that are going to be very unique and different. You may also have the experience of like downloads, blueprints, sudden realizations striking you like you're a lightning rod. And then your life is an exploration of, well, why do I have that? It means you're connected to something. You're connected to something bigger than just yourself. It's very meaningful, it's very profound, and it's ahead of your time.
So is that in a way what I'm here to give?
Absolutely. And I think you are in good company, because we're exploring a lot of these dynamics, and many of the souls in this communities are also discovering where we do have special North Node and Leo, recognizing where you're special, where you are born to be this way, that also has a function and a contribution back to the collective, Pisces. So you're hitting the nail on the head with these questions. And I do think that astrology can provide quite a lot in understanding these dimensional connections between individual, collective, why we're born at the time that we are, the groups of people we're working with, what we're doing. Yeah, I could see this being a lot of your exploration.
Thank you. Can you tell me in what manner that could look like? Creative.
That's one of those questions that there's so many infinite potentials from what we see in the chart. There's so many different things that could look at. Creativity is highlighted. Tuning into nature is highlighted. You know, it's really going to take you on a journey of what's beyond what's on the surface. That's going to be North Node in the 8th house, exploring the occult, exploring the unconscious, exploring the unknown, getting into the mystery. This is also a journey towards intimacy, being able to connect in a very meaningful, profound type of way with others. So what does that look like? That could look like innumerable different things: creative expressions, charitable endeavors, communal projects, spiritual teaching, and certainly it could be all the above. You have this new moon in your 3rd house, the house of Gemini. You can be quite multi-talented. You can be a polymath. You know,
it's funny because like I can feel my whole body is vibrating right now as you're saying all that, and that's been like an indication to me on my journey so far. Kind of what I've been talking about, how there's like just things slightly beyond that I just can't put my finger on it, you know? And so is that my dharmic path in a sense, is to...
That's exactly what your dharmic path is. Those things that you can't quite put your finger on, that's where you're going.
Great. I love it. Can you, what about the whole relationship thing in the moment? Is there any transits in relation to that? Because I'm not sure exactly how to navigate it. Like, yeah, that's all I can say.
Let me see. Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be Pluto square Venus Yep, that's the big relationship transit. Okay. And so there's going to be some transformation in how you're doing relationship, where previously it's a little bit more like, are we having a relationship or am I taking care of you? Like you're the provider, provision, stability, ground, making sure everyone's seen and everyone's heard, you know? And so this Pluto transiting your Venus is this new reality that you're breaking in, where you can be free to be yourself and be supported in relationships. And it's also going to change this pattern of providing provision, holding stability that actually prevents a deeper intimacy. You'll have to be looking at why there isn't a deeper intimacy. And that's going to include more than just yourself. It's like, you might be just like, why isn't this working? Well, it's more than just you. North Node in the 8th house is going to be an exploration of what's beneath the surface, the intimacy, the unspoken things. Again, what you can't quite put your finger on, that's where you're going. That can play out in this relationship dynamic as well. But Pluto squaring Venus in Aries, it's about having the freedom to be yourself and have that be structured in your relationship. So it's not like you're either free from relationship or in a relationship. You get to be free and in a relationship at the same time. How that's playing out with this person at this time specifically, I'm not sure. That would depend on how much they're working with you to transform these dynamics, or if it's something that needs to transform in another way. So you're not, you know, just again, being held in those old roles, that wherever there's that feeling of stagnancy, that's where you're ultimately going to be experimenting and talking and having conversations that can be very healing in transforming this old dynamic where, yeah, you know, this can also play out very much with gender stigmas and gender roles with Venus in Aries. Having to be the perfect stoic man, you know, and it's like, well, you have that skill set, but there's other parts to yourself that you can't just eternally have on the back burner.
Amazing. Okay. That really helps. Thank you.
For sure.
Okay. We've got a question for you though, before we transition or this ends. I wanted to know, a lot of things that you say doesn't sound like it comes from you or comes through you, rather. And so I'm curious to know, like, how did you get into astrology and how did you start studying it? And do you tap into something that's much more than your own knowledge?
That's a great question. And I'm not even really sure if I have the answer, but I will pull up my birth chart to give the best reflection that I can. And thank you for this question. I know that people like to hear me answer questions about myself too. So this will be a nice little bow tie, unless I miss somebody.
It's funny because my partner, she came in as we were on the call and she said like, oh, I'm going to my mom's and I'm going to stay at my mom's. And then as I hugged her, you said, oh, I don't want to live at my mom's house. And then you went on and said some other stuff. And then she said something about how she's like, I just don't feel comfortable here. It doesn't feel like home. And then you immediately said like, safe and good environments take time to build. And then she was just like, what is going on? Is the universe talking to me right now? And it's just, I find situations like that when I'm watching your videos where the words and things that you're saying is multidimensional in a sense.
Cool. I love hearing this stuff. I have chills as you said that. I mean, this is Neptune, Pisces, 12th house phenomenon. And the point is this is going on in you as well. You have this magical reality happening all throughout your life. And then again, you're trying to put your finger on it and you're digging and you're exploring and it's going to lead you deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
I'll let you know, my life is fucking surreal as all hell.
Yeah, magic, very real.
Such an acid trip, honestly.
Yeah, I'm realizing that more and more.
So something that is distinct about my chart, and this is a South Node in Leo, ruled by Sun in Gemini, and then ruled by Mercury in Gemini. And this Mercury is also on the north node of Uranus and trine my own north node in Aquarius. And what this signature says is it's not my first lifetime probably doing astrology, probably involved in Gnosticism. You know, I've been doing Gemini in the 12th house for lifetimes. 12th house is the collective. We're all connected. Gemini is the magician that's breaking apart these different archetypes so we can understand these different bits and pieces and how it all relates together. So that's a bit of the astrologer signature in my chart. I started doing astrology during my Uranus square when I was 2021. That's when I had this huge dimensional leap, and it was like leaving the dark ages behind and entering into the future. And it's been that way ever since. The question is whether or not I'm channeling. And I have people tell me I'm channeling all the time. In my own experience, it doesn't quite feel that way. In my own experience, I am Gemini thinking all the time. And when I'm not opening my mouth and it's flowing out of my mouth, that's what's happening in my brain. And I don't have the experience of other beings talking to me. It's a 5th house Leo south node in the 2nd house. I'm talking to myself all day long. And I'm thinking thoughts. And this is kind of funny. Pluto in the 5th house, south node in Leo, ruled by Sun in Gemini. As a child, I used to go into my imagination or go into the shower, and in my imagination would be me in front of a crowd giving lectures. And oftentimes, even still, this is how I think. I go into the shower, I start listening to myself giving a lecture, and that ends up becoming the lecture that I give.
Wow, cool. Okay.
So when it comes to the 12th house, Pisces and Neptune, it is so mysterious.
Yeah.
Am I receiving information from other places? Is it dropping into my head from on high? Oftentimes it is. Why I start thinking about the things I'm thinking about, who knows? So yeah, I don't quite have an answer to that question. I also have another sensitivity where I have this thing with ears and hearing and ringing and intuition. And that's been kind of fairly new to my journey. I've only cultivated that skill set in the last few years. And that one's even more mysterious to me because that one does not seem to come from me. That's not like me thinking in my head. It's like I'm about to turn left or right at the traffic light, and the traffic light's like, turn this way. I have no idea why. And then listening to that intuition, there always ends up being some reason. I get a shortcut or something works out. So that to me is different. And that's what's cool about astrology is we have all these different bits and pieces happening simultaneously. Jeffrey Green, when you hear him talk, it's same as me. It's like fluid, it's articulate, and he never said he channeled. He said, no, I'm not a channel. People say I'm a channel, but I'm not. It was all coming from him seeing and then talking about what he's seeing. And I similarly feel that that's what's happening. I do have prayers and rituals I do to open and close space, but am I reaching up and talking and receiving magical things from my guides? That's not my own personal experience. A lot of times I feel like I'm alone in the room, and that's my own 12th house. This is oftentimes true with channels, though. You're so close to the thing, you don't even see it's there.
Yeah,
so I can't answer the question.
Yeah. So are you, is it in a way you're in alignment with your higher aspects?
Sometimes it seems that way. Sometimes it really doesn't. I'm also very Gemini, so I'm certainly Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Anyone who gets close to me personally gets to know both sides of my personality. But thanks, Callum. I appreciate that question. It's always enjoyable to talk a little bit about myself too.
Of course, man. A pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, y'all. It's been a great Q&A. I didn't think it was going to go this long, but we went for, again, about 4 hours. Feel very inspired and charged, even talking that long. I'll invite us all. If we have any part twos, realizations that comes down the line, please do post in our community. Anyone's always welcome to use the Q&A circle to post questions, and I'm answering questions in that format as well. So I'll ask you to all unmute yourselves if you feel called to say something or give a little goodbye. But again, it's always an honor. I'm truly humbled to be here to connect and share through this lens of EA. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
great.
Thank you
Hope
so
you all
much.
have an
everyone.
awesome new moon, despite how emotional it is. This can be a powerful time of prayer that can bring us all together. And I do look forward to that.
Too.
Wishing you all the best. Take care.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.